Sort of banned words like confidence, driven and honest, yes. I don't care about Brexit.
They are implicitly... What was the word they used, or the phrase they used?
Idiotic.
They were sort of implicitly gendered.
I went to Newcastle for the weekend.
Did you? How was it?
Came back with a wagon wheel. They can see that.
I saw that wagon wheel.
Quite a session for me with my best mate, yeah.
Oh,
9
yes.
bottles of wine.
I know who you were with.
Yeah, Sergei.
Yes. Yep.
Sergei, Russia's famous
9
golfer.
bottles of wine and as many wagon wheels as you could strap.
And then I went to St James's Park on Saturday and saw the tsunami loose. So that was
I was
great.
about to say, it wasn't a good weekend.
No, I've got to listen to it. No. You're looking well and sophisticated and suave, and we're hitting the clock and you want to go, but I'm not going to let you go because I want you to be late.
Jerry Carl,
my wife
on
sends
the
a
other side of the news at 4 o'clock. Bye.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good afternoon to you. Welcome along Monday's Drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Hope you had a great weekend. The Housewives' Choice, Ian Collins, back, of course, tomorrow afternoon from 1 o'clock. Honestly, I am so excited to be here today. I woke up this morning. We have this email sent by a legend that's called Ricky, and it outlines the main news stories of the day. And all we got was Brexit reset. Starmer seeks to reset Brexit, and I'm like, really? Whatever. And then it talks about the tariffs, the trade wars, and Trump, and that's quite exciting. But then the main news of the day. I honestly share my enthusiasm. I've got the best clip you'll ever hear in about 5 minutes from Mike Graham's amazing breakfast show. Sadriri Starmer, the man who quite rightly at the time laid into Boris Johnson and all those dreadful Tories that dared to have a Diet Coke whilst working 24 hours a day to deal with the pandemic that the rest of the world had no idea, as we didn't, how to deal with it. He's been accused of breaking lockdown rules. Wouldn't it be exciting if that man actually had been caught with, I don't know, a hooker or a bottle of gin? No, nothing that exciting for Sir Keir Starmer. He's been accused of breaking lockdown rules by hiring a voice coach to come to his house on Christmas Eve when we all weren't supposed to speak to anybody, so she can make him sound more exciting. Several things jump to mind. The first is it obviously didn't work, did it, to be honest, because we all heard and remembered when he turned those Christmas lights on. 5, 4, 3. How do you teach somebody if you can't see their lips? And while we're at it, I mean, honestly, who paid for that? The taxpayer? I think it's brilliant. I think I want people to do impressions of Keir Starmer being taught. How did he sound before? Brilliant. I listened to Mike this morning and I was transfixed. So do me the favour, try and make us sound a little bit like the Mike Graham Breakfast Show. 0344 499 1000, the only number you need in town. You can text, of course, 87222. Start your message with the word talk. And Ryan, who's not very happy, but he's a Watford fan, he'd be used to it. He, of course, is waiting for your voice notes. You can send them. Do a Starmer impression. 0344 499 1000. Other shocking news. You could talk about Brexit if you want. I'm not really bothered. You can talk about Trump's trade war. Apparently the Mexican president's just said 5 minutes ago it's all back on. I don't know. Scotland are banning cats. Scotland are banning cats? I thought Scotland wanted nothing to do with us. Now they want to ban cats. SNP ministers are to consider banning pet cats in a bid to protect birds and other wildlife. An official report for the Scottish Government suggests that establishing containment zones where residents can be forced to keep their pets indoors or stopped from owning them altogether. Can you imagine Trump? They're eating the dogs. No, I'm not even going there. Can you imagine? Ryan's devastated. He, of course, has a cat. So sadly, he won't be moving to Scotland. 0344 499 1000. And if you think that wasn't barkingly mad enough, see what I did there, Ryan? Never mind. Network Rail has told staff to stop using the word passengers. The company that maintains Britain's railways has issued new guidance to employees asking them to use less formal language in a bid to reduce customer frustration at train delays. So if your train's late and your day's screwed, a man can't now come up to you and say, "I'm sorry, passenger, the train's late." What are they supposed to say? We're not allowed, I mean, apart from that being barking mad, the other favourite one is a council wants staff to avoid using the words confident, driven and honest in job adverts. The balmy bosses at gender-coded North Devon Council, seen by the Sun, 52 masculine-coded words and feminine-coded words that could upset people. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Great Britain. The world is on a precipice. Donald Trump is taking over. We have a Prime Minister who had a voice coach on Christmas Eve in a mask to try and sound more exciting. Oh, my God. And we're in a land where the Scots want to ban cats and Network Rail want to ban the word passengers. 0344 499 1000. So much to talk about. Hopefully we'll get to it. Hello to Reg Gardner. Good afternoon, Jez. Hope you had a great weekend. If you're not allowed to call a passenger anymore, hasn't there earned the lyrics for the song? I'm a passenger. Possibly, I have no idea. We say a very good afternoon to a former government special advisor. Has he had a voice coach? James Price, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Oh, hello, everyone. No, I shouldn't have done this. That's my best Keir Starmer impression. Goodness me.
Mate, I'm just going to, if you don't mind, to take a segment of yours. For anybody who missed this on Mike's show this morning, this is a minute, but this is hysterical. This went out online. This is a man responding to the news that Sir Dreary Starmer broke lockdown rules and hired a voice coach during COVID. Have a listen, my friends.
Let's get another voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. It's James.
Oh, that's great. Brilliant.
Voice coach. That's a real low point. I mean, a voice coach. Dear Christ. Can you imagine what he spoke like before? I wonder if the voice coach went to him, "Okay, Keir, a new voice in 5, 4, 3. He's brilliant, isn't he? Oh, it's only Monday and I'm already delirious. What a weapon he is.
You can't make this stuff up, can you? I mean, of all the people that you would have a secret meeting with during COVID, it wouldn't be a doctor. No. It wouldn't be anybody from some kind of, foreign organisation from around the world who you had to see. It would be a voice coach. Yeah, that's a really, really important thing. And on Christmas Eve, I mean, does this man not have any kind of, love at all? I thought he would like to spend time with his family. On Christmas Eve, I will spend time with the voice coach who will teach me how to speak properly. OK, Keir, I'll see you later on at home then. I've got somebody coming round in a mask. Also, imagine wearing a mask and teaching somebody how to speak. There's something wrong with him, isn't there? What is it? What's wrong with him?
If you haven't, and I'm not just saying because you're my mate, honestly, I laugh out loud. This is a news breakfast show and it's bloody hysterical. James, we can talk about the serious side of laying into Boris Johnson, but every time I arrive here, every day there's something to bash this idiot with, isn't there?
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? You know, I have an evening ritual of reading a chapter of a novel to my fiancée every evening, and I try and do the various voices of the characters, and I've struggled with a few. My Turkish accent's not very good,
no.
But I'm just hoping that in this next chapter, some kind of complete moron is going to come along, because I think I know which voice I'm going to do next.
Well, thank you to the team. The A-team are in, because we can cross live to Brussels and hear the man who employed a voice coach during COVID. Listen to this. This is our dynamic Prime Minister. Go.
Hard European defence. In the UK, we're proud to be a leading NATO ally, part of the forward land forces, helping to police our skies and patrol.
Cut. Didn't work the money, did it, Jay? Honestly, mate, I tell you, I can't. It's hysterical. It's like, just give me something here. It's a story. And actually, let's now talk about the serious side. Boris Johnson had his flaws. I remember Boris Johnson being accused by Sir Keir Starmer of, you run 10 Downing Street, how can these things take place? As the man, you don't know what's going on. You were the Director of Public Prosecutions and missed out on Jimmy Savile, mate, before you point the finger. But no, lo and behold, while he's telling the world it's appalling Johnson's having a Diet Coke, he's got a woman in a face mask teaching him. Does he? I mean, it is unbelievable, man.
But the first thing I think is maybe he should ask for his money back, because it's clearly not worked very well. I think this is the point that we've missed so far. You know, if you were so desperate to get yourself ready that you were going and seeing a voice coach, as you say, on Christmas Eve, which, you know, Parliament will have risen by that point. You know, you don't need to go and see that. And it's not exactly worked very well. I think this happened with Ed Miliband. The story was brief that he was going to have minor surgery on his own vocal cords. And you know, oh, good, well, maybe he'll sound a bit better. And
minor surgery on his inability to eat anything without spraying everything all over the floor. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary. Do you think this will go and go, this story? Is it a bit of fun? Because to me, there is a serious side to it, which is he's a blimmin' hypocrite, man.
Yeah, I think it's not going to help the fact that he's already now as unpopular as I think almost any Tory MP has been. It's only this early into his administration. And it does just show the hypocrisy of the guy. He said and did absolutely anything he could to get into power. And now you're seeing the result of them not having any clue what to do afterwards. There was a guy who's now running Great British Energy that they've set up. I've got no idea what it's supposed to do. It's jeopardizing our entire energy security and switching off North Sea oil and gas. It's going to make us all die of cold over next winter, probably. But the guy said, oh, no, it will definitely bring down bills. Well, how? And then he said, we're not going to go after the farmers. And he went after the farmers. We're not going to go after the pensioners. He's gone after the pensioners. You know, I know the old joke is, how do you know a politician is lying? Well, their lips are moving, which might be why they forced us all to wear masks. But Starmer does take this to a new level. You cannot trust a single thing that comes out of that man's mouth, whether it's been vocally trained or not.
And that's the point. And of course, you know, we woke up this morning, the main headlines, you know, Starmer is going to reset our relationship with Brexit, with the EU. That's going to hack Trump off. He's going to do his bits. And actually businesses, and there is a serious side to this, businesses will pay the price. In that dreadful budget in October, small businesses were absolutely hammered. And for me and you and most people with a brain cell, a small business is a very essence of how a country creates money and growth, by being successful, employing people, and that filters down. No, they've destroyed anybody with a business, medium and small. And thus, also, apart from the business side of getting closer again to Europe, does he not understand, or am I going to be given some lefty, I nearly said the wrong word, 52% of this country voted to leave, and most of this country is frustrated it hasn't taken place. The man just doesn't have his finger on the pulse, does he? Not at all.
No, I think, again, it all comes back to this core thing that I'm not sure how much he actually plans any of this stuff, how much he believes in any of it. He has a general, broad, I think actually probably quite far left sensibility, that he thinks that state is good, that private sector is bad, the government should do things and charities shouldn't do things, and that foreign institutions are better than British ones. He said that himself. He said that he would prefer to fly off to Davos and hang out with the global elite than be in Westminster.
The global elite? What a load of old tosh.
So I think a chunk of it is that, but there's also the fact that other than Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who spent a few years working in the private sector, she said that she was an economist, then it turns out that she might have been in the complaints department, which is, again, kind of mendacity that shows absolutely shocking lack of respect for the people who voted for her. But other than her, none of these people have ever worked in the private sector. They've never worked for a business. I think literally nobody in cabinet has ever worked properly for a business before, and they therefore don't understand that these things are all going wrong. And they've got idiots like Dale Vince, who managed to get this lovely juicy contract. I'm sure it's a complete coincidence if the lawyers are concerned, from Ed Miliband after giving the Labour Party over £5 million.
And he also said he got divorced, and it's a subject close to my heart, and he gave away 40 million. He said, I thought that was okay. I did more money than bleeding sense, Dale Vince. Yeah. Unbelievable.
That's how utterly classy he was in that sense. But he said, it's good if rich people leave the country. If they're traitors to Britain, meaning, if they don't want the government to take all of their money from them to spend it on, the tens of thousands of fighting age male coming over here and small boats to stay in hotels, it's good that those people are going, no, it isn't, because that means the burden everybody else is going up, and all of the ingenuity that those people plough into this country and the hard work and the investment dries up, and we all end up poorer. Labour either don't care about that, they don't understand about that, or they want us to end up poorer and weaker.
I'm with you. There's a voice though. What's the name, Rye? Let's do it. What's the name? Print it. Right, let's get ready, James. Richard, go.
Oh, hello there, speech coach. Yes, please do come in. Yes, thank you. Okay, then. No, don't worry about any COVID restrictions. No, it's fine. Right, so let's crack on then. Okay, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. How was that? Was that pretty good? Okay, yes, let's get on to the next one. Red lorry, yellow lorry. Oh, this is going so well.
That's what I want the show to be, otherwise I'm going to be nuts. Honestly, people are laughing at this man, and anybody who thinks that we're being unfair is missing the point. You made a really salient point there about Great British Energy. No, it's a land grab off farmers to destroy their livelihoods, to plant bloody wind farms that will not generate enough energy. They've admitted as much, so they'll import it. This is what the people of this country need to know. They'll import it from elsewhere, and your bills will go up even further. We'll have the most expensive electricity in the Western world. This green thing is rubbish. This desire to bloat the public sector and screw any business. And we're led by a man who is that much of a hypocrite that he actually had somebody round his house to teach him how to speak on Christmas Day. The world's gone mad. Talking of madness, JP, I'm going to pass over Trump for a minute because that just makes me laugh. Scotland to ban cats. I've really no idea. Is this Swiney or Swinney trying to get his name in lights? Because they're barking mad. I don't think they want to be part of us anyway. What's that all about?
It's just absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, this is one of the problems that you have, I think, at root. I've tried to work out where this might have come from, is that you have now a very bloated public sector, and in all the main departments, the fact that Scotland has its own sets of educational departments and all the rest of it because they have devolved powers differently, and Scottish educational outcomes and health outcomes are much worse than English ones, aside from the point, because we have the same kind of problem of big bloated bureaucracies down here in London and in the rest of England as well. You've got tens of thousands of people with made-up job titles who go around trying to convince themselves that what they're saying is worthy, and they say the most mad stuff possible, and because either they believe in it, and none of those mad ideas would actually work in the private sector, so they can only get it done on the taxpayer's dime, and then this stuff kind of bubbles up because there aren't enough political people, of left or right, who would hopefully have the good sense to say, it may be somewhat electorally disadvantageous to us to ban all cats from a nation.
It's not even that. It's not even that. The country as a whole is on its backside, and you've got politicians wanting to be taken seriously going. And all I could think about this morning, to get me into trouble, but I don't care, is can you imagine what old Trump said during the election? They're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs in Springfield. Can you imagine him? And the whole thing, and then you add to that story this Network Rail. Have you heard this story today? Have told staff to stop using the word passengers. The company that maintains Britain's railways has issued new guidance to employees, asking them to use less formal language in a bid, you'll love this, JP, to reduce customer frustrations when your train is delayed or cancelled. Words including purchase, obtain and rest assured, all that's two words, have all been axed from the company's official lexicon. Instead of passenger, staff are advised to use the words you. It's a neutral term and avoids assumptions about gender. Oh, Jesus. So passenger means that you're a man or a woman. You means... I want Trump. I want him to come here. Honestly, I can't be doing with it. That's a genuinely true story. James doesn't know what to say.
I'm lost for words for once, mostly because all the words have been banned. I'm tempted to find the same kind of humour as you, but it's not funny. This is literally part of the plot line of George Orwell's 1984.
Yes.
That's a book that's meant to be a warning against totalitarian government, not a bloody instruction manual for
Absolutely.
it. In 1984, they go through different versions of the dictionary. For people who haven't read it, go read it. It's not that long. It's absolutely terrifying because you'll see a lot of parallels with what's going on today. They go through new editions of the dictionary, and every edition, the dictionary gets smaller as they cut out and ban more words, because if you don't have those words, the big brother government thinks that you won't be able to think those thoughts. Absolutely. And cutting it down and increasing control. When you see train companies doing this voluntarily, you see these stories popping up everywhere, and you say you can't say that anymore, those are banned words, those are dead names, you're not allowed to do that, that's offensive, you'll get cancelled. That's where we're creeping more and more towards more totalitarian government. It sounds shrill and terrifying until you realise stories like this, train companies not allowed to say passengers. It's absolutely mad.
And you can't if you're on a plane now, they're not supposed, British Airways, I think, you're not allowed to say ladies and gentlemen. I mean,
quite right. You should obviously say my lords, ladies and gentlemen.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, and all those people in steerage, a very good afternoon to you. Amazing. 4:20. Love your thoughts, by the way, everybody. 0344 499 1000. They're raining in already. Impressions of Starmer are always welcome. JP, to finish, Trump's trade war. What do you make of this? He talks about fentanyl, he talks about illegal migration. He's taken a strong view with Canada. He wants it to be the 51st state, with China, with Mexico. That's been rowed back on. What do you make of this? Is he stirring trouble, or has he got a point?
So first things first, tariffs are bad. Tariffs are always bad. They hurt people. They're economic dead weight. The money ends up going to government so they can do bad things to their people, because that's what governments tend to do. One really, really bad tariff is the customs union that the European Union itself does to protect its own businesses. Not doing very well, though. And that's obviously hurting farmers in developing worlds and things like that. So the EU complaining about tariffs is a bit damn rich. But I think we should think about these tariffs not as economic tools, although Trump talks about it a bit like that. I think he really and his team think about these as more like sanctions in terms of military moves, right? Governments spend money on diplomatic services, they spend money on armies. They wouldn't like to do that if they didn't have to, but they do. So I think that we should consider it like that, and that Mexico and Canada need to tighten up their borders, because America has terrible problems, these fentanyl drugs that turn people basically literally into zombies, and it's horrible. And the reason they're also targeting them at the EU and the UK is because only the Poles and the Estonians and the Greeks, and maybe us with some accountancy jiggery-pokery, pay their fair share of the defense budget. And so Europeans sleep soundly in their beds at night thanks to the generosity of the American taxpayer. That is embarrassing and shaming. We should stop doing it. But if we do get away from it, what a massive Brexit benefit that we're going to avoid it thanks to the most pro-UK president America has ever seen.
Love having you on, but you're not allowed to go. No guests today. I'm afraid you're on the spot. To count yourself out, JP, I need your Sir Keir Starmer impression. Go.
5, 4, 3, exterminate. 2, 1.
James Price, former government special advisor, thank you very much indeed. This is Talk Drive, 4 on a Monday afternoon. It might be dreary outside, but the news isn't dreary, because Sir Keir Starmer has been outed as having employed a voice coach. Not just having employed a voice coach on Christmas Eve. This is in the middle of lockdown when he took aim at everybody. And obviously this voice coach who had a face mask on has done a great job, because he still sounds as boring as he did before. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222 and get your voice notes in. Ryan's having a ball. This is Talk Drive.
us about these revelations. Tell us what you've learnt about Keir Starmer.
No, it's not for me to say whether this is for better or for worse. But he's not a natural politician.
No.
In fact, he overtly loathes politics. He said so. And we reported that in the aftermath of his suspension of Jeremy Corbyn, which, you know, ex post facto, he now describes as this great moment of clarity and incision on his behalf.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 4:26. This has got you. Keir Starmer employing a voice coach during COVID when we were all not allowed to speak to anybody, the two-faced old rat. And she had a face mask on. It hasn't made much difference. Crystal says maybe the voice coach was a Christmas gift from the wife. I think you might be right. Sally's in Paris. Sally, why would you pay a voice coach to get you to sound like Kenneth Williams? Yeah. What a prat. She says, not me. John in Birmingham. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Starmer for his excellent job, but I'm not talking about Comrade Keir. I'm talking about Daddy Starmer. Rodney, who we know was a toolmaker. Well done, Rod. Top job. You've created the biggest tool ever to run this country. Hello to Brad. A rumour has it that Starmer had the same voice coach as John Major. Yes, that could be interesting. Bister. Why did I say that? Colleen, good afternoon. If the taxpayer was charged for dreary Starmer to have a voice coach, can we get a bleeding refund? Hello to Cliff. He's in Berkshire. Jez, every time I hear Starmer speak, I can't help but think about Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and their famous comedy conversations. If you haven't watched that, go online and do that. That's hysterical. That's brilliant. Jenny's in Oxfordshire. Good afternoon, Jenny. Labour say it was within the rules, but this was the law, not just guidance. Families could not have Christmases together because of the tiered law and bubbles. Yes, Jenny, and of course he quite rightly was slagging off anybody in the Tory party. Obviously Boris Johnson, you can't do this and you can't do that, and he was breaking the rules as well. Joe, during his acting degree my son had to do all classes including voice coaching on Zoom. Those were the rules. Interesting. Ian's in Somerset. Just wondering if Starmer's voice coach taught him tongue twisters like the hostages, fat sausages, sat flat on the platter, so hostages got... Absolutely, I completely agree with you. We need to avoid... We need the sudden release of all the sausages. Graham's in Bushy. Why was Starmer's voice coach designed or designated as a key worker? Was the person who delivered beer and curry to Starmer and Rayner in Durham also designated as a key worker? Graham in Bushy, you are absolutely spot on. One rule for them, one rule for the rest of them. With a voice note. Jimmy, go.
My father was a tool maker, so I need your help to speak properly. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
But not in Scotland where cats are banned. We're delighted to welcome former Tory MP, and he's seen the light. He's with Reform. Marco Longhi, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm on one this afternoon because that two-faced, hypocritical disgrace of a human being that they call Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, has been caught with his trousers down again. We can talk about Brexit and you on till the cows come home, Marco, but this is unbelievable. Breaking lockdown rules, hiring a voice coach, and what about the results? He still sounds like a robot with the personality of a dustbin, doesn't he?
Yes, well, I mean, what can we say about Keir Starmer? I posted something just yesterday that he'd sent out, which was to say that his number one priority is to keep the people of this country safe. So I said something on Twitter and it's gone absolutely viral because he was one of the signatories to that letter, if you remember, to ground 50 Jamaican criminals, rapists, drug barons, whatever. Yeah. And a number of those went on to commit crimes because, you know, he obviously lent his human rights law expertise and got the plane grounded. You know, another one of those conservative defeats, I'm afraid.
In terms of you personally, I haven't had a chance to ask you this, but I'm interested, my friend. I freely admitted on this show, and will continue to admit it, that I was brought up in a Tory household. Tory values to me were low taxation, secure borders, a strong military, not a fear of crime, but actually policemen and women on the streets. The law and order was in place. And then we got towards, obviously, the election, and Reform started speaking the language that I was used to, but they were called far right. You moved from the Tories to Reform. Has it been like a breath of fresh air, being able to speak your mind and talk common sense, my friend?
No, absolutely. I mean, the last 4 years have been, it's been a death by 1,000 cuts in so many different ways. Like you brought up in a household where that kind of language made sense to you all your life, and then you had this wonderful opportunity to represent your constituency and your country. In 2019 came up, and I was very grateful for that opportunity. But decision after decision was just so unconservative, in my opinion. And I'd seen the rot start a number of years before, with the Conservative Party, when they set something up called a list in the selection of candidates. And I do blame the selection of candidates a lot for what's happened in the Conservative Party, because if you look at the number of MPs that make up Parliament now, I would say that two-thirds of them are probably what I would describe probably more of a Liberal Democrat or Social Democratic Party bent. And this is going to be a major problem for Kemi to sort out. I hope she does, because I think it'll be good for the country to have a solid right-of-centre government one day. But
government one day, but you're hold on a minute. Government one day. You're in Reform now. The Tories are never coming back. Reform are going to form the next government, aren't they, Marco?
Oh, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that, of course. But what I'm trying to say is that the Conservative Party left me. I have not changed in any way.
Yeah, good point.
I would absolutely identify so much more with Reform, and I stayed loyal to the party in the ups and downs. If you think about when your football team is going through a very bad moment.
Hold on a second. Ryan can identify with that. He's a Watford fan. There we go. Yeah, that's good.
Well, quite. But I mean, if you supported West Brom, you don't jump over to Aston Villa, and likewise when things are going very badly. So I've stayed with the Conservative Party over decades through thick and thin. But this, a million immigration last year. It's a betrayal of gargantuan proportions, and 4 times the country went to the polls in one way or another, and people, conservative leaders made gave a narrative which was we are going to deal with this, we promise we will deal with this, and they didn't. In fact, they did the exact opposite. And I just can't look the electorate in the eye, the good people of Dudley at the time, saying, Marco, on the doorstep, we really like you, Marco, but if I vote for you, it's a vote for the Conservative Party. For Rishi. I can't do that.
Marco, are you going to stand for Reform?
Well, I hope so. That is a decision that is not in my hands. I will put myself forwards, and if I am selected, it would be the greatest honour of my life again to represent the good people of Dudley. The Black Country people are salt of the earth. That's what I consider myself.
I'm not sure you're allowed to. I'm not trying to make this light-hearted, but having dealt with the government last week, where they banned certain words, including blacklist, I don't think you'll be able to call a yam from a black country anymore. Very quickly, my friend, the big serious news story of the day: Starmer seeking to reset Brexit. Everything that a lot of people voted for being thrown back in their faces. Suffering businesses will face higher costs as he continues to plough towards this closer relationship. And in layperson's terms, that's not going to do us a great favour, is it, with the United States of America, who finally got a man in charge, like him or loathe him, who's speaking the language of what people want to hear.
Correct. And so where the failure of the previous Conservative government, again, another failure, was to deliver on the benefits of Brexit. So Brexit gave us the tools to deliver on a number of things, and it just patently failed along the way. That was another reason why I actually said, this just cannot go on. Brexit was one of the main reasons that kept me in politics. But as far as Starmer is concerned, he will say, oh, no, we are not rejoining the EU, but he's misleading people. Because I quite accept that he might not get to the point of a formal reintroduction into the EU as a member of that organisation, of that of that political dinosaur, horrible conglomerate that it's become. But actually, he will do a number of bilateral deals, as is being talked about with the students' visas for people under 30 coming over. That'll be free movement again for people. And what do we know about a lot of students? And even Suella talked about it in Parliament, in the chamber. Some of the biggest numbers coming in for illegal immigration are students who come in on fake courses, or they might stay on a course for a few weeks or stay for the duration of the visa, but then they overstay. So that's a huge, huge problem. So how can we be confident at all that if any students from maybe the countries like Bulgaria or Romania can come in, maybe some 29-year-olds pretending to be 19 and wanting to start education all over again, and then just simply disappear, because that's what's happening.
Marco, I don't want to stop you, but I have to, my friend. You've hit the clock. We really appreciate it. Marco Longhi, ex-Tory MP for Dudley, who's joined Reform, hoping to be selected, and talking about how Starmer, the boring man, the son of a toolmaker, is apparently forging closer links with Europe. Let's go to the phone lines, actually. Forget a voice. Let's go to London. James, you're on Talk Drive. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon, JK.
Come on, then. Crack on. I'm a busy man. What do you want to say?
Right, JK, right. I just want to understand this. We got Keir Starmer, who wants to have a voice coach. I thought this man was a high-end barrister, a master of oratory, the former director of public prosecutions. Why does he need a voice coach? If we've had a prime minister dismissed for having tea and cake, what about this clown?
I completely agree that the man is at best a disgrace. I don't understand. I mean, he's a hypocrite, isn't he? Let's be perfectly honest. He's a hypocrite. And at the end of the day, hypocrites will be found out. Sir Keir Starmer, you're right, was the director of public prosecutions. The director of public... And he's about as inspiring as... I mean, totally... But the fact that he stood and he slagged, and I thought at the time quite rightly he was slagging people off for breaking rules that everyday people were struggling with, he was doing exactly the same, James. He's no better than the rest of them, is he?
Absolutely correct. And do you know what? If he needed a voice coach, what was it like when he was in court as this high-end barrister? Was it like somebody on helium?
Well, I agree with you. Listen, you missed Savile. You're a very nice man. 23 minutes to 4 o'clock, or is it 5 o'clock? We're very busy, Ryan. Ryan's looking stressed. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Text to 87222. This is Talk Drive.
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is talk.
He'll be here from 7 and I can't bear it because he's a big Fulham fan. I went all the way to Newcastle at the weekend and sat in a box full of Newcastle fans whilst Fulham won. O'Sullivan will be unbearable. 20 minutes to 5. We're live across the UK. Can I say one thing about this vain attempt at a radio and television programme? We are warts and all. We've tried cream, but it doesn't work. During that last segment, an engineer came in and pushed Ryan's box. I know, it sounds weird, so there was funny. I left my phone on and Sky News came through and Jodie dropped the phone. It's all going on. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's get a bit of sense. Let's go to the Spectator, the deputy editor, a legend in his own lunchtime. Freddie Gray, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jerry. Lovely to be with you.
You're not allowed to come on unless you could do, before we even start, don't give me any of this serious stuff. I'd like you to do an impression of a man who was the Director of Public Prosecution but found it necessary to have a voice coach on Christmas Eve. Do your Keir Starmer, Freddie Gray, go.
No, Jeremy, I refuse to take part in such a fatuous exercise.
Fantastic. I was actually making
That's very generous of you to say fantastic.
Mate, you know, we can sit here and we can talk about Brexit because we know he's a liar, we know he'd lie, but can we just talk about the hypocrisy of this man? Boris Johnson might have been flawed, but Boris Johnson won a huge majority for Brexit in 2019 and 3 years later was ousted for, yes, flaunting, it seems, lockdown rules whilst the rest of the country was suffering. We have a Prime Minister today who's that exciting. He actually hired a voice coach, right, on Christmas Eve, which is a story in itself, for God's sake, you boring idiot, not you, him, who had a mask on, so quite how you're going to treat... that doesn't work, does it? I mean, mate, he's a hypocrite, isn't he?
Well, part of the reason some people thought Keir Starmer would be a good Prime Minister, some idiots did think that, was that they thought he was so boring, he was the type of person that would restore trust in politics because he followed the rules, he'd be sensible and so on. But he manages to be boring and not follow the rules. And he manages to be incompetent and inept at the same time.
But it's extraordinary. And do these people think, when they're passing judgment on anybody else, that they're not going to be caught out with their trousers down? He's an idiot.
Well, I think COVID was a time where the political class just didn't expect to keep the rules themselves and expected to impose them on everyone else. But I think now, looking back over that whole Partygate period, it did really feel like, I don't want to come across as too Nadine Dorris here, but it did really feel like an orchestrated coup. Journalists being briefed very regularly, very aggressively, towards undermining the Johnson administration, and the Johnson administration did a pretty good job of undermining itself.
Yes.
But the level of anger about the hypocrisy, and yes, it was hypocrisy, but the level of anger about it, I think, was artificial and inflated.
I remember in the Commons when Boris Johnson dared to say, well, what about you? You missed Jimmy Savile when you were the Director of Public Prosecutions. And every news, oh, this is outrageous, this is dirty politics. But then I remember Starmer standing up and saying, don't lie to us, Boris Johnson. You're in charge of Number 10. You should know what's going on. Well, you were in charge of you were the Director of Public Prosecutions and you missed several vital people. And now it turns out that you were the leader of the opposition and you were doing something equally as bad. And yet you stood there and you pontificated. I just think this man... I mean, somebody said earlier, how can he have been a high-end barrister? I mean, you know the great 5, 4, 3... I mean, that's it. Maybe you're right. Maybe people thought after all the drama they wanted somebody boring. He turns out to be a bigger liar than any of them, doesn't he?
I think he certainly has issues with the truth and not a very lively mind.
No. He's boring, isn't he?
He's dull as dishwater, and I mean, I wish we could get rid of him sooner, frankly.
No, well, listen, very soon, you know, I'll be accused of being unfair to him. Let's talk about his, because this will annoy people. Starmer's seeking to reset the Brexit deal by getting closer to the EU, which is quite interesting, because Donald Trump, God rest him, God, I'd love him over here, he says, yeah, I'm going to punish you for that. I mean, again, difficult for Starmer. Different parts of the party trying to be all things to all people, right?
Well, what a great opportunity. I mean, people have always said, you know, what are the real benefits of Brexit? We've just seen one potential one here, which is that Trump thinks of the UK as separately to the European Union in his very aggressive tariffs agenda. But I wish we had a competent, nimble Prime Minister who could take advantage of this diplomatic impasse between Europe and Trump and present Britain as somebody that can benefit from that impasse, that can benefit with Europe and America at the same time, that could operate nimbly and quickly and all the things that Brexit was supposed to bring us. But no, we're not. We're stuck with someone who is thinking in terms of Brexit was a failure. We need to reset relations with Europe as much as we can in as many ways as possible, and essentially reintegrate with the European Union, if not in name, but in fact.
So it's a globalist who cares more about that than he does about the will of the British people, which is to deal with immigration and to deal with the things that are blighting their everyday lives. I read a story over the weekend, which we've done many times on this show, but a woman had written into a local newspaper and, she'd been, I think she was in her 60s, and in the village in the north where she lives, there are 300 migrants in a hotel who see a private GP the day after they arrive. And she's been waiting 4 years to have a hip replacement. Explain that to a normal, down-to-earth, tax-paying, law-abiding British citizen. They are up to their back teeth with it, aren't they, Freddie?
Well, we are sick of the established political parties we have. Are the British public willing to turn to reform as the alternative? We wait and see.
What do you make of that, Bud? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Reform have a very significant chance of winning the next general election if they don't blow it. They may well blow it. And I think, Westminster itself is more, if you think about America, where you have had the Republican Party, a major party, taken over by an insurgent force. Reform is a different proposition entirely. They are an insurgent party trying to take on the established parties. So it's a different process. But, things are changing all over the world. I mean, Marine Le Pen could be the next president of France. The AfD are doing extremely well in Germany. We are at an inflection point in history, and political parties either got to catch up or die.
Don't we look like this country, when you think about Canada, you think about that ghastly Liberal Trudeau's going, you think about, lots of countries in Europe have moved to the right. And you look at America, and then you look at this island, Great Britain, Sir Keir Starmer with the voice coach and the yellow pages to stand on. I like to describe us as 4 years behind America. That's what I like to describe us as. I think we're at the beginning of Biden, aren't we?
We are, we're downstream from America culturally and certainly politically. I hope we're not at the beginning of Biden, because I just hope things could change quicker, but perhaps you're right.
I wish it would change. Let's do some stuff. The Spectator, you and Mr Gove doing a fantastic job with the newspaper. Scotland are banning cats. Have you seen this story? That was Miss Scottish Jackson. SNP ministers are considering banning pet cats in a bid to protect birds and other wildlife. I mean, again, you talk about how people see politicians. What's going on in the Middle East? People can't pay their bills. There's starving, homeless people. Farmers are being screwed left, right and centre. And the Scottish National Party is saying, we're going to ban cats. Ludicrous, man.
Well, it's odd, isn't it? I think we're reaching a sort of Harry Kiri stage with a lot of our political class, where they are deliberately trying to do and say things that they know will really annoy voters. I'm not a big cat person. I'm quite in favour of banning cats, but that's why I'm not standing for elected office, because I know that people really care about cats. And if you want to win votes, suggesting banning them is not a very good idea.
So why would you do that? Is there nobody in these people's ears going, "Oh, Mr. Swiney, ban pigs with a name like that? That was ridiculous." But listen, you idiot, this is going to upset people. How is that of any use to protect wildlife? What does that mean?
I think when people reach a certain point of unpopularity, they start doing things to make themselves unpopular unconsciously almost.
Brilliant.
And I think we're at that stage with a lot of our parties now.
It is so good to have you, and I know you're a busy man. How's it all going at The Spectator? Is he looking after you, the Govester?
Oh, he's been wonderful, yeah.
I think he should give you a pay rise. I'll have a word with him.
No complaints.
Good man. Thank you. Freddie Gray, Deputy Editor of The Spectator, live and exclusive on Talk Drive. 12 minutes to 5 o'clock. They're banning the cats in Scotland, and Sir Keir Starmer's got a voice coach because she's having a very hard time trying to be excited. But listen, on Christmas Eve, most of us were with our family. He wasn't. He was with a voice coach in a mask going, "This is... How do you see anybody with a..." Anyway, there you go. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We're coming right back on the home of common sense and free speech. I'll be back in 3. I'm off for a wee. Ta.
us about these revelations. Tell us what you've learnt about Keir Starmer.
No, it's not for me to say whether this is for better or for worse. But he's not a natural politician.
No.
In fact, he overtly loathes politics. He said so. And we reported that in the aftermath of his suspension of Jeremy Corbyn, which, post facto, he now describes as this great moment of clarity and incision on his behalf.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 5. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive, JK till 7. Voice note from somebody who left no name, so we're going to call him John. John, go.
So, what are we doing next?
Do the prayer, Keir.
Yes, I'll do the prayer. Okay. Right, here we go. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil flip-flops. How was that?
Maybe do the ask for the returns, Keir.
I would like to ask for the return of the sausages. And anybody who thinks that we're not getting back into Europe, what do you think I'm doing here? And if you don't like it, you're all far-right thugs.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. No name, but that's an impression of Sir Keir Starmer today. The breaking news, if you are, where have you been? You must know by now Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of breaking lockdown rules with a voice coach that came to his offices or even home on Christmas Eve when most of us were celebrating, although I had flu. He decided to stand on a book of yellow pages to try and improve his voice to sound dynamic so that he never again sounds as he did when he turned on the Christmas lights. 5, 4, 3... God, it hasn't worked. Let's go to Mary. You're on Talk Drive. Mary, couple of minutes. What you got?
Do you think that the voice coach was there to try and convince him to lie more convincingly?
I don't know, mate, but he doesn't lie convincingly to me. I mean, I can see right through it. He's unbelievable, man, isn't he?
Oh, he is. He's absolutely unbelievable. And just one other quick thing, Jeremy. Don't worry about being 60. I've got a son older than you.
You've got a son older than me?
Yes.
How old are you?
83.
Oh, bless you. 83, love. Do you go to bed very early? Do you go to bed very early and wake up at 5?
No. I just, at 9 o'clock, I don't dress up to go out. I just put my pyjamas on.
Listen, I put mine on at 6. We love you, Matt, so we can have you on any time. Thank you for 83. There's more spirit in her than there is in Jodie. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Merseyside. Why did I do that? Laurie. Is it Laurie or Laurie? I hope it's Laurie. How are you? You're on Talk Drive. What you got?
It's Lowry, actually.
Great, brilliant. Thanks, Ryan and everybody, for helping me with that, making me look like a total idiot. That's fine. Larry, how are you? You're named after the hotel in Manchester.
No, I'm not. I'm Welsh Laura.
Oh, you're Welsh, are you? They're banning the cats in Scotland. What do you think might happen in Wales? They could ban the cows.
Well, as long as they ban the talk presenters, because I was a real fan of talk television, but I'm getting more and more sick of you and the other presenters taking the mickey out of Keir Starmer.
Why?
Because it's emulating his voice.
He's a prat.
He is not a prat.
Right, you tell me one thing that he's done that's been any good in the last 8 months. Do you believe that cancelling fuel allowances for pensioners is a good idea? Do you believe in stealing land from farmers is a good idea? What do you think he's done?
I don't think he has done the job as well as he did DPP. And listening to him in lectures as Director of Public Prosecution was wonderful.
Hold on a second. He missed out on Jimmy Savile, a serial child abuser. He missed out on prosecuting him. He had the temerity to stand in the House of Commons and call Boris Johnson every name under the sun. The guy's a hypocrite and a failure at his job. Come on, give me something that Keir Starmer has done that's worked. Come on.
I think Keir Starmer should just be left alone for a little while. He works as a team. It's not just him, as you well know.
No, they're all prats.
Taking off his accent, every programme is becoming a bore.
Is it? Well, I'll tell you. Could you do an impression of him?
Yes, I could do an impression of him if I was a male.
What?
I'm not a male. I can't...
All right, listen, it's not for me. Listen. We're not gender specific on this show. I'm not getting involved in that. You can be what you want to be. Can you do an impression of him?
I've only got what I've heard him say to me personally.
Oh, he's spoken to you personally. What did he say to you personally? Hello, Laurie.
But no, he didn't.
No,
he said, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Webster. It's so nice to meet you."
Good afternoon, Mrs. Webster. It's so nice to meet you. Do you think he's helped people in this country then, on a serious note? Because I think he's screwed people in this country.
I don't think he's doing a good political job, but he does have a good, how can I put it?
It's falling down a bit, isn't it?
He's good from a law point of view.
He's good from a law point of view? He's good from a law point of view? Are you joking me? Have you been sent to wind me up this fair Monday afternoon?
No, but...
Anybody that disagrees with him has been labelled far right. That awful human being that stabbed 3 young girls, he didn't want to talk about it because it might jeopardise that guy's criminal case, but he was happy to label anybody that disagrees with him and his ridiculous policies as far right and get them arrested. Come on, Larry, you can have an opinion, but that's ludicrous. Can you do an impression of your favourite politician before we go?
He's not my favourite politician.
Who's your favourite politician, then?
Reform leader.
Good man. Well, I mean, good lady. Oh, God, I've given up. Anyway, thank you very much indeed, Larry. Miles. Quickly to Neath. Oh, it gets worse. Quinn, you're on Talk Drive. You literally got 1 minute. What you got?
Yeah, the cats.
Turn the radio off, man. I can hear feedback in my ear. It winds me up. Turn it off.
Sorry, back, hasn't it?
What?
Yeah, cats. Cats in Scotland.
Yes.
When you get rid of them. I mean, at the end of the day, if you get rid of the cats, you'll have too many rats. I mean, at the end of the game, these wooden...
No cats, lots of rats. That's from Wales, is it? Can you do an impression of Keir Starmer? Brilliant. Honestly, this is turning even more deranged by the minute. There was a woman... Goodbye. There was a woman on saying that she thought he was a nice man. That didn't go down too well. And a man from Wales has said, if you don't have cats, you'll have lots of rats. Talk Drive, 1 hour in, 2 to go. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. We're live across the UK. You can text 87222, start your message with the word talk. And my friends, the news at 5 is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, hour 2 of Drive on Tour. I'm loving it. The home of free speech and common sense, JK till 7 o'clock tonight. If you want to be part of this vain attempt, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. So we came in this morning and everybody's like, oh, Brexit. Starmer wants to reset Brexit. Yeah, whatever, yawn, yawn, yawn. And then I listened to the legend that is Mike Graham on Breakfast, where he made a very, very salient point, which was that we've discovered that Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules. But, I mean, it would be exciting, as I said earlier, if he'd gone out with a hooker and a bottle of wine. But not him. No, he's that interesting. He hired a voice coach to come to his house on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, you boring... and teach him how to speak a little bit more excitingly, because one day I could be a world leader that people listen to. Now, obviously, you look at it and you go, voice coach... mask on, slightly dodgy, and then you think about the more serious side to it, which is, hold on a second, you got rid of Boris Johnson by telling quite rightly the whole world he was in charge of Downing Street and there were parties and we'd set these rules and we banned them. Let me play you a clip from one shadow minister, Jonathan Ashworth, 24 hours before dreary Starmer, OK, got himself a voice coach. This is what the Labour Party were telling you. Have a listen.
This variant has been found in the southeast. It is the epicenter of it, but it's radiating out, if you like. It is spreading. We found examples in other parts of the country. We're really worried that the tiered system isn't going to be tough enough to contain this virus. So what we're saying is to the Prime Minister, to Boris Johnson, is last time you received advice from the scientists for tougher restrictions, you sat on it, you dithered, you delayed. When we called for you to act, you mocked us and ridiculed us, and in the end, you were forced to act. So don't sit on the advice this time, because we know delaying has devastating consequence.
But my boss, 24 hours later, is going to get a woman in to teach him how to speak in his house or his office with a mask on. Breaking the bloody rules. What do you make of that, my friends? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We say a very good afternoon to the chairman of Great British PAC, former MEP, Brexiteer, and a great friend of the show, Ben Habib. A very good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Good to see you.
I'm sorry. I know Brexit's your bag, but for me, there is only one story in town. How that two-faced, hypocritical liar who forced Boris Johnson, quite rightly, before you jump in on me, to admit that he'd made mistakes during lockdown, is that much of a hypocrite that he had a voice coach at his house on Christmas Eve teaching him how to sound more dynamic. Now, obviously, because you and I have a sense of humour, it patently failed because he's about as interesting as a cup of tea. But Sir Keir Starmer's a hypocrite, Ben Habib, isn't he?
I actually don't believe that she was there in a professional capacity. Christmas Eve, voice coach. Christmas Eve, voice coach during lockdown. I mean, it may not be as sinister as it could be, but she's a friend of Mr. and Mrs. Starmer's, or at least Mr. Starmer's, isn't she? Sir Keir's friend. That's what it is. Come on. She may happen to be a voice coach. That may be a good way to pass it on. But how many people get a voice coach in on Christmas Eve? That's the last of your worries.
And also, Ben, right? So, face mask. What you need to make sure you're doing when you... How I can't see your lips. How's that working?
No, I mean, I suppose none of them really speak. They don't enunciate properly because they're all lying most of the time, so they just mumble. So I guess a face mask doesn't make any difference to them.
But I mean, for me, there is an important point here. He stood up, and I remember when Boris Johnson in the House of Commons said, it's a bit rich you having a go at me about, you know, Downing Street. It's a massive organisation. You were the Director of Public Prosecutions and you missed Jimmy Savile. And commentators and newspapers were astounded and offended and said, Boris Johnson's gone too far. Well, actually, he was in charge of the Public Prosecutions Office and did nothing about Jimmy Savile. And he was also in charge of the Labour Party, berating the government, and it turns out being no better than Boris Johnson. Are they all the same?
Well, I think they are. I think the political class is hijacked. They play they play the 24-hour news cycle. You know, they're obsessed with the 24-hour news cycle. As long as they can get through the news cycle, they feel they've done their job. And that's one of the reasons I've said, you know, I've agreed to chair this great British Political Action Committee, because it's not a think tank. You know, we're going to create... we're going to move the Overton window to the right, colloquially right, so that people can actually be proud of this country and make policies based for the benefit of this country and for the people of this country. It's an extraordinary thing. I mean, you heard Yvette Cooper yesterday, didn't you? When Trump talked about tariffs, she didn't say, oh, that could hurt the British economy. Her response was, that could hurt the global economy. I was absolutely stunned. Yvette, you know, it's not about the global economy. It's about the UK economy. So, you know, we've got to get our politicians in the first place thinking about our country, and then they've got to do it in a joined-up fashion. With
but we know, don't we? The
people
I
and
don't,
so on. Yeah.
But we know this. Well, I don't think this Labour government. I don't think a majority of this Labour government. None of them have ever had a proper job. Somebody said that earlier, and it's absolutely true. I don't think a majority of them are proud to be British. I think the majority of them are globalists, and I don't think they give a toss, frankly, about the average person in this country. I think they're more interested in their ideology and the big view of the world, I think.
I completely agree. And over 27, 30 years of this narrative, what's happened is that nowadays, if you speak proudly about this country, if you say you're proud of the Union flag, you believe in our imperial history, Winston Churchill was a force for good, you say any of those things, or including, for example, I think borders should be enforced, you're regarded as far right. And that is just absurd. You know, we've got to shift that Overton window to a position which is reasonable. And sadly, I think the Conservatives have fallen into the trap of the Labour Party's narrative, which was set initially by Tony Blair and then propagated by Brown and Cameron and so on. And they've never done what a Conservative Party should do, which is to say, no, that's all nonsense. We're going to repeal everything that Blair did because it was deeply damaging. And then having got rid of the obvious damage he's done, we're then going to put forward conservative policies which protect and promote this country. And that's what we've got to get back to. We've got to get back to, either through reform or the Conservatives or whatever complexion of party or arrangement we have, we've got to get a government that actually is going to deliver for the country and for the people.
Couldn't agree more. Obviously, most of the news cycles today centre on him seeking Dreary Starmer a Brexit reset, and he talks about how that's important. But businesses screwed in that budget, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, this workers' rights stuff that's coming in under Rayner, all of this designed to apparently do good, but in my mind will destroy business, and this will put even more pressure on businesses, Ben.
Absolutely. Look, one thing we know about the European Union's model is that it is extremely large state interventionist, big spending, wealth redistribution, basically a fundamentally socialist way of governing. And we've already got that on steroids. We don't need any more of that. What we've got to do is look at what's happening across the Atlantic and realize that when Trump is cutting taxes, cutting regulations, ditching net zero to make American fuel even cheaper than it is at the moment, all of that is going to suck capital out of the sclerotic European Union and into the US. And unless we get on the US's bandwagon, we'll be caught with the European Union in the ship going down. So they may all feel comfortable hobnobbing with each other, and I think they're going to have a slap-up meal in Brussels tonight. That might make them feel good. But actually, frankly, they're on the Titanic. That's what the EU is. It's a slow-sinking ship, perhaps not as fast as the Titanic.
How dangerous do you think Starmer's European view is? He couldn't integrate us completely, but in subtle and dangerous ways, he can make us closer to being back for something that we all voted to leave. What, 52% of the country did?
I think he's deeply dangerous, Jeremy. One of the things he says he's speaking about tonight is defence. You know, cooperating, as he calls it, on defence. But that you can read that he is going to take the knee to European Union intelligence, foreign policy and defence. The EU has said it wants a European defence union. It wants to lead the creation of a European equivalent of NATO. And the difference between NATO and the European Defence Union will be that the EDU will be under Brussels. NATO is independent countries coming together, deciding to cooperate in the defence of the North Atlantic in Europe and so on. this will be a very different thing. This will be Brussels dictating what the British military does. And that's what he's going there to discuss.
But I mean, just slowing that down a minute, for people listening to this, for people who understand that 2016 we left, right? We've got a Prime Minister who is, not so subtly, but maybe to other people, getting us nearer to being back to something that the majority of people who voted in that referendum didn't want. And we're powerless to do that. But there's another question for me. Does he not know the strength and the depth of feeling against what he's doing? Because this is what I don't understand about Starmer and his cronies. I mean, when we sit here on this show, Ben, and we talk about the least popular Prime Minister probably ever, and I mean that for the first 9 months of his reign, does he just think I've got 4 years and I'm done? Does he not give a toss? Is he so blind to what public opinion is saying, whether it's the Southport riots or Alex Rudabicano, whether it's pensioners losing their fuel duty or farmers being land grabbed or Great British Tossy Energy with that idiot that can't eat a sandwich? Does he not understand that people are genuinely already at the end of their tethers?
I don't think he gives a damn. If he cared about what the people thought, that would indicate he had some understanding of how democracy works. I think this man wants to drive through his agenda, which he's doing without any U-turns. He's just driving it through. And I think he hopes to dumb down our democracy even more than Blair dumbed it down, giving away more power to international institutions, entering into more international treaties, so that every time we, the British people, ask our government to do something, they will just point to international law, as they always do, and say, well, we can't, because I know it would be in our interest, but we signed this new treaty with the EU, or, you know, our military can't perform the way we wish it to perform because we have to wait for instructions from Brussels.
Can I tell you something else?
Going to do.
Can I tell you something else that really, really riles me? I was up in Newcastle with my mates this weekend and we were talking about reform and we were talking about the country as we always do. I can't, for me, and I'm 60 this year, I will never forgive Sunak and his party for one thing. I can talk about moving to the centre, I can talk about losing that. The one thing that they didn't do was manage to tell the British people, you might have stopped believing in us, but let me tell you something, because I'm going to say it in every broadcast and everything. This is socialism at its finest, by the way. You are going to be screwed. You are going to be nearer to Brussels. You are going to lose. Your words will be banned. You won't be able to... Madness. I don't think the British people had any idea what was coming. And we're 9 months in, and it's going to get worse. It is going to get worse.
It's going to get much worse, because as America takes off, which it will, its economy is going to take off. It's going to suck capital out of Europe. It's going to suck capital out of the United Kingdom. And we will be even worse off. I mean, Rachel Reeves' budget was... She talked about growth. I mean, my goodness, growth. So we've had job creation just falling off a cliff ever since her budget. More government borrowing than the OBR had predicted. You know, we're already in a doom loop. And then on top of that, as you rightly pointed out, Jeremy, she's bringing in constraints on employment law. She's bringing in constraints on how you can lease your property if you own a flat. She's bringing in constraints. Get this, she's bringing in a law which requires companies to keep a record of the ethnicities they employ and the various salaries they pay to make sure there isn't an ethnic wage gap.
Bring back Trump, colourblind and merit-focused, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just hollowing out ourselves in every direction.
You're not getting away with this. You're not getting away with this, though, because we're going to move on to other things. Can you do an impression of Sir Keir Starmer? Come on, everybody else has done one.
I can't do one. I really can't do. I would try and do one, but I just
like this. Well, welcome along. Do that.
Well, I'm the most boring man on the planet.
Benny H, you're good.
That was nowhere near him.
No, it was good, though. It was good. So bearing in mind, we then talk about the seriousness of Brexit, and we talk about all of these things, and then you wonder why British people, and I mean this with respect to all sorts of people who might be offended by what I'm about to say, are angry with what's going on, is because there's this major sort of shift to the left and this madness that we're experiencing while the rest of the world goes right. And then we read stories like this today. Your response, please. Scotland are considering banning cats under SNP ideas to protect birds and other wildlife. An official report for the Scottish Government suggests establishing containment zones where residents can be forced to keep their pets indoors or stopped from owning them altogether. Domestic cats have a significant impact on wildlife. Let's forget the dogs that rip kids' heads off, shall we? Let's just ban cats. And that is a policy?
Oh, it's just absurd with all the things that this country is grappling with at the moment.
Unbelievable.
Cats attacking birds ain't right at the top of the list, you know. I mean, it's just this is the ever increasing interference of state in our lives, isn't it?
And then
they're now telling us which pets we can have.
I know.
I mean, what the hell?
And Network Rail, have you read this one today? They've told staff.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. Watch Ben Habib or listen to him. They've told staff to stop using the word passengers, Ben, basically. The company that maintains Britain's railways has issued new guidance to employees asking them to use less formal language in a bid to reduce weight to the last line. Customer frustration if the train is delayed or cancelled. Words including purchase, obtain and rest assured, that's two, have all been axed from the company's official lexicon. Instead of passenger, ready for this? Staff are advised to use the word you, oh God, a neutral term that avoids assumptions about gender, Ben Habib.
I mean, it just drives you mad. I don't know if you recall Oxfam had a go at doing something equally stupid a couple of years ago when they produced a 92-page document on the English language, decolonising the English language, in which they said you can't say the word mother and father because it's a hark back to imperial times. You have to say parent. You can't use the word headquarter because it's got overtones of authority. I mean, what are these people on? You know,
but when you laugh about that, that is the reason they don't want any small businesses to grow and anybody to be successful. They want the state to be bloated and everybody to be given money to stay at home and not provide any competition or be successful. That's not how a country succeeds.
No, and actually there's a more sinister side to this. They're taking control of the language because then they can, purvey their narrative. And once we start talking the way they wish us to talk, well, they've won the battle, actually.
Well, I hope we don't all end up talking the way he talks. Ben Habib, good luck with Pack. It's always great to have you on. The legend that is Ben Habib on Talk Drive, 5:20. I'm going to do a call out here. So ever since we started the show, telling you about Sir Keir Starmer. By the way, afternoon to Rob in Newcastle. Robbie, thank you for a great weekend. Love you, man. Ever since we started telling you that Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of breaking lockdown rules by hiring a voice coach who came to his house on Christmas Eve and tried to make him sound more exciting. You've been in your drove sending your impressions. I think I need a lady. Am I allowed to say lady, woman, girl? Feminine person. To do an impression of Sir Keir Starmer, a bird. Because I think, not a bird, not in Scotland, they'll be eaten by the cats, all the cats are gone. Anyway, I think a female impression of Sir Keir Starmer would sound like Richard III. Do you know who Richard III is? Rachel Reeves, have a look, 5:20.
us about these revelations. Tell us what you've learnt about Keir Starmer.
No, it's not for me to say whether this is for better or for worse. But he's not a natural politician.
No.
In fact, he overtly loathes politics. He said so. And we reported that in the aftermath of his suspension of Jeremy Corbyn, which, post facto, he now describes as this great moment of clarity and incision on his behalf.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Jodie's saying something rude in my ear. 5:25. We're live across the UK. This is Talk, the home of common sense and free speech. Thank you for tuning in. Loads of text. Jez, I'm sure Starmer used to do the voices for the Daleks. Don't be so rude. You will be exterminated. Robbie T. Love the show today. Laughing my head off, Jez. Are you sure Starmer's voice coach wasn't Mr. Boone? Jason's in Worthing. My aunt used to live there, dead now. Everybody's dead in my family. What Marco should have said, Marco Longi, is that the Tories need to pull themselves together to make an effective opposition when Reform are in power, not that the Tories need to change to make an effective government. This isn't a sign that Reform are only there to get the Tories to pull themselves together. Cheers. I'll tell you something I think about Reform as well. Nothing against Marco Longi. Really good to have him on the show. I think they need to be really careful, Reform, not just to hoover up every single, Tory who wants to see the light. There's plenty enough people who weren't involved on the Tory side who can see the light for it themselves. Rich is a yam yam. If you don't know where that is, that's the Black Country in Wolverhampton. Not that you can say that anymore. I know exactly where Keith Drama has gone wrong regarding his voice coach. He should have gone the whole hog and got two to coach him. I had two voice coaches, and I'm pretty sure they did a great job. They were my parents. Good point, me old son. To say he's been in courtrooms where you'd think he would have picked it up. What an absolute pillock. Yeah, good. Hello to Jez. I think it's safe to say that the great British public are realising that Starmer is a mumbling, no-good puppet, and he's betrayed the country, and he's totally inept, says Leo. Michael's in Norfolk. Norfolk, lovely. Jez, has it crossed to Keir Starmer's mind that the EU might not want closer ties, knowing Reform would scrap the deal when we win in 2029? Mike, hello. Starmer won't send his kids to a private doctor and spends Christmas Eve with a voice coach. I thought he loved his family. Very, very salient point. Jez, banning dogs? Banning dogs? I've never heard a cat. What about banning? How about banning dogs? I've never heard of a cat killing a child. That's a very good, true point. Donna's in Brum. I've just come in from work, Jez, and I'm having a bottle of beer listening to you. And you proper made me laugh today, you did. I don't care what they say about you. You're all right. Thanks. What do they say? Oh, don't worry. Stuart, for Starmer's investigation for breaking the COVID rules, they need to insist it's a Conservative or Reform investigator, as last time it was Labour's Sue Gray. Yes. Actually, why don't we get Sue Gray back? Because she's really hacked off with him because he got rid of her. Maybe Sue Gray should investigate him. Graham, as the voice coach was there on Christmas Eve, was she trying to train Starmer to say, yo, ho, ho? Yeah, the following day when he came down the chimney and not sound like a constipated Dalek. Rob Armstrong, excellent. Sounds like Zippy off Rainbow. Yeah, it does, actually. I'm sorry, Jez, but maybe the SNP will be better banning their wind farms than chopping up birds and bats. I think you're right. 0344 499 1000, Talk Drive at 5:26. We've got some voice notes which you can send on your WhatsApp thingamajig on 0344. I'm just doing that because I'm having a laugh. 0344 499 1000. You can send a voice note, as did David. Go.
Keir, I'd like you to do some warming up exercises. Wheeze the vocal cords. Can you recite some pledges from your manifesto? By Jove, you've got it. You sound like a complete...
That is my favourite voice note of the day. David, you've won the prize. There isn't a budget, so you've won bugger all, but well done. Matthew, go.
The farmers, the pensioners, businesses,
the whole bloody country is suffering because of this bloody hypocrite. I'm sorry, but it just makes my blood boil what this man is doing to this great country. He's got to go. He's got to go today. He's got to go now before he does any more damage.
0344 499 1000. One of his cabinet ministers has just raised their head above the parapet and gone, hello. No, they've actually said that he stands for respect and hard work after a new book. This is brilliant. Over the weekend, claimed that his chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, described him as lacking any real skills as a leader. He's more like an HR manager. And that's his chief of staff. Can I play that David one again? I'm sorry, I'm then going to move to Benedict Spence, but this is the greatest voice note ever on the day that Sir Keir Starmer was outed as having got a voice coach to come to his house when the rest of us were locked down, hypocritical bugger, on Christmas Eve with a face mask. Have a listen to David.
Keir, I'd like you to do some warming up exercises. Ease the vocal cords. Can you recite some pledges from your manifesto?
By
Jove, you've got it. You sound like a complete...
Benedict Spence, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Jeremy. How are you doing?
That was a bit serious, Benedict. I mean, I know you're there in Spence Towers, but did you hear that marvellous impression of... You can't come on today unless you can do an impression of Keir Starmer. 3, 2, 1, Benedict Spence, go.
Well, I can't do an impression of Keir Starmer, but I can do Sir John Major's spitting image puppet. That's about as good as it gets. It's basically the same thing.
Mate, honestly, we can sit here and we can drone on about how he wants to reset Brexit and he's a globalist and Great Britain. But this man is an absolute hypocrite. I was probably the last person that continued to support Boris Johnson. Of course, then there was the picture of the Queen at her husband's funeral and he was toast. But here's the thing I want to say about Sir Keir Starmer. A hypocrite. And I don't understand how he doesn't think this sort of stuff is not going to come back and bite him on the backside. In the midst of that lockdown, to have a voice coach to his house, I'm not quite sure how it works, Benedict. You go like, look, hey, smart. It doesn't really work, does it? But has been outed as exactly the same as the rest of them, and didn't, I suspect, think in his highfalutin way that he would be found out. Shocking.
I mean, that's the key thing, isn't it? That there was just this perception from so many politicians that, oh, these rules, they're for the little people and they are very important, but actually who's going to notice if me, person in the national spotlight, is going to skirt round them? And even if I do and am found out, I'm very important and actually my needs come first. I mean, I'm delighted for this voice coach in question. She must be the first ever actor or actress to be designated a key worker. Frankly, so if nothing else, that's pretty groundbreaking.
But I mean, if we're being slightly flippant, she's not very bloody good at her job, is she? 5,
well, exactly.
4, 3, 2.
Exactly.
1.
If anything, he actually seems to have got worse over time. Which is, I don't know what school she went to of acting, but it's certainly not one that I think you'd pay to go to. But we shouldn't be too mean about this individual, as fun as it is. It is mainly about Sir Keir Starmer, and the fact that they are, as usual, the drawbridge is going up. There's nothing to see here, Gov. It was a different time. Everyone's moved on. That doesn't convince anybody that no wrongdoing has gone on at all. All that says to people is, so there is something to hide here. And actually, if we were holding you to the same standard as Boris Johnson was held to, you might be in a bit of trouble.
Well, I mean, what is the difference? What is the difference between, let's have the conversation, between being in an office where people had a drink of an evening, it seems, and a piece of cake, and having people to your house as the leader of the opposition, destined at that point, I think, already to be the Prime Minister one day, blatantly breaking the rules. I remember with that curry and beer night, I remember on air going, that's no different, and yet that was let go by the press. The press was out to get Boris Johnson. That's history, that's happened. But the thing about this guy that amazes me, not amazes me, it's the wrong word, astounds me, is that every single day there is something, whether it is ineptitude, whether it's blatant just disregard. I don't know whether they listen to there isn't anybody that he's listening to, because does he just have, is his fait accompli that he knows he's got 4 years and 3 months left? Because I've never known anybody so unpopular.
I mean, to answer your question, what's the difference? At the very least, a party with Boris Johnson sounds like it could have been fun, whereas I really can't think of anything worse than being stuck in a room with Keir Starmer and a voice coach. As to whether or not he is simply incompetent or unaware of what's going on, I mean, you alluded to it, the quote by Morgan McSweeney that he is effectively a train driver who's been put on a DLR train, a driverless train, and that's basically the role he's there to fulfill. I think there's a lot of truth in that. Now, as you say, the fact that they've got this huge majority and they've got quite a large amount of time with which to exercise that power, I think that also plays into it. And also the fact, we can't get away from it, that the Conservatives are still rubbish.
Yeah.
And Reform do not exactly know what it is that they stand for or the direction that they're going. There are teething troubles there. But whether or not those two parties get themselves together is also irrelevant, because neither can form a majority whilst the other one exists. They will take chunks out of each other in the next election. So in many ways, Labour's probably sat there going, okay, it's great that they're both not brilliant, but even if they get really good, all that means is they cancel each other out. So they still reckon there's a chance that they sneak in with a much reduced majority in 4 or 5 years' time, but a majority nonetheless.
But in terms of him, I mean, let's bring it to Trump. The EU warns Trump it will retaliate over tariffs, and yet he makes no secret of the fact, Starmer, that he wants to align himself closer to Europe. There's this defence discussion. He's over there today, sounding as boring as ever. Trump, meanwhile, is cascading across America, defining that there's men and women, jobs should be based not on colour but on ability, that, he's going to defend America. He's not going to have America ripped off, and he's going to finally do something about the immigration problem that nobody else seems to have an answer to. And already they're going, oh my God, this is outrageous. Starmer's going to get burnt this way as well, isn't he?
I mean, it's a tricky one, because politically in the UK, Trump and Elon Musk and all of that sort of accoutrement, they remain politically very unpopular. Starmer cannot align himself with anything that the United States is doing, because his own base will tear chunks out of him, and they'll go, but you're enabling a fascist and this, that, and the really sensible and mature way that they respond to everything.
Yes.
So he can't do that, even though he is looking right now at what's happening and thinking, if you were to pick a side in the upcoming fight between the EU and the US, there's no question which side you'd pick. You go with the one that's actually got the economic growth, that has the sort of...
And could give you a trade deal away from a bloc that we voted to leave 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, the difficulties around the European Union, look, geographically, they are always going to be a very close trading partner. They're not going away, but they have made a series of decisions that also prove that economic growth is not, in fact, a priority. What is more important for them is protectionism, which is ironic given that we're talking about Donald Trump and protectionism. The most ironic thing, I suppose you'd say, about all of this is that people who are very outward-facing, pro-Europeans, people who say that they are fundamentally about an interconnected world, they ought to be the ones most on side of embracing trade with America and not simply trading with the closest geographical competitor. They ought to be the ones that are going, well, let's slip the bonds of geography, let's actually go to the rest of the world. But these are the ones that hate Trump the most. As we've seen, though, with Trump and his tariffs, be it with Mexico, be it with Colombia, and it's going to happen with Canada as well, the United States and its markets are too powerful. They are simply too powerful for even major economic blocs to withstand that kind of pressure. Colombia capitulated within an hour to his threats.
Yep.
Mexico lasted about 12 hours. Canada, I'm not sure how long it will last, but it's not going to be pretty. Denmark, you expect, will be the same. Now, the European Union, as a much larger bloc, has a much greater amount of strength. But in the long run, if this were to actually run into a trade war, into a tariff war, there's only one winner in this scenario. So why it is that you'd want to chain yourself to the losing side, which would make you an addendum to the losing side, I don't see how on earth that is viable long term.
Really interesting, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, for me, I think that I don't think he has... I mean, people say he doesn't have a plan, Benedict, but I think he's just got an ideology, and I don't think the next 4 years are going to get any better. So Trump's trade war is taking place. Sir Dreary Starmer is doing his best to reset Brexit and become more and more popular. He's being outed as somebody who's broken lockdown, and yet this country is run by a government and by councils and by officials that don't ever seemingly get it right. We've got war in the Middle East. We've got... I mean, there's all sorts of crap going on in the world. There's stuff going on in this country. And here comes a very, very impressive suggestion politically today from the SNP, and we wonder why we think our politicians are mad. The SNP, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, they're banning the cats. I didn't say what Donald Trump would have said. Scottish ministers are planning to ban pet cats in a bid to protect birds and other wildlife. You remember during the presidential election, there was uproar when Donald Trump said they're eating the cat. The migrants are eating the cats and the dogs in Springfield, Ohio. Can you imagine him? They're banning the cats in Scotland. What in the name of God does anybody really think of that with what's going on in the world?
Honestly, I mean, to be honest, this is only a vague extension, I think, of what you're currently getting from the Labour Party, which is environmentalism gone mad to the point where actually you make crackpot decisions. And, you know, we can see that reflected in the broader suggestion that the UK is going to have to sacrifice 10% of its farmland for environmentalist causes. That means solar panels. In the bottom 10th of the globe, where actually solar power is the least effective, we're going to have to give away 10% of our farmland. It's
a land grab.
We're planning on increasing our population by 5 million. You know, this is what you get with, environmentalist ideology ends with people making insane policy decisions because actually it doesn't work. There are things that you can do to make your economy slightly more carbon neutral, things like nuclear energy, things like, there are lots of things, geothermal energy, again, something we're not talking about because it's not trendy. Actually, what the greenies like, they like their solar panels, they like their windmills, they don't care that they don't work. They love their songbirds, they love their biodiversity. Do you know what they don't like? People and their pets, because actually they say things like, oh, well, they kill the songbirds. And it's the same as when,
Sorry, can I make a point that's been made by several people? What about banning dogs that rip old people's and kids' heads off and kill them? No, we'll not ban the dogs, we'll ban the cats for eating a bird.
Well, the dogs did get banned, but they aren't really banned. I mean, that's one of the weirdest. That's one of the. I have to be honest, actually, that whole let's ban the XL bully thing. That was one of the weirdest policy things that I've ever seen. Because all you do is you change the definitions around the breed, and people get around it that way. We haven't banned those dogs at all. Dangerous dogs are still all over the place. It's not a policy win, but people are talking about it like it's something. But again, do you remember the whole nonsense about how much methane cows produce, and so we're going to have to put special gas masks on their mouths so that they can't burp, and that was going to help the environment. People come up with insane things.
Stop the cows farting.
Insane ideology.
Do you, on a serious note, we go back a long way, do you fear for this country, Benedict, seriously?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think, genuinely, and I'm not just sort of saying this to be a bit doomerist about it, I think we're a good 10 years behind where much of actually the real developed world is in terms of what the future direction of travel is. And it's not just the UK. Much of Europe is suffering the same thing as well. But, the solution to our problems is always going to be progress, technological progress. For that, you need lots of energy. And I'm sorry, the best and easiest way of getting that short term is fossil fuels. The long-term solution to that is nuclear. But even with that, there is no future in which we stop needing fertilizer, and there is no future in which we stop needing plastics. I'm sorry, but we're not going to start making things out of wood again. That's not how things work. China understands this, India understands this, the United States understands this. It's just us and Europe that we think, maybe we can just regress and everything will be fine.
I'd like to say it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, the legend that is Benedict Spence. This is Keir Starmer on Talk Drive. I'm coming back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ta-ra.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Bringing my step and my hat is a jaunty angle because I've had a wagon wheel with the jam in. 6:45, 0344 499 1000. Voice note from Andy, go.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Keir Starmer. I'm looking to find a voice coach for Good Friday and Easter Sunday, if you're available. Thank you.
Brilliant. 0344 499 1000 to Epsom. Daniel, 2 minutes on Talk Drive. What you got, pal?
What's happening, Cheers? How are you, mate?
I'm all right. You need to do your Keir Starmer impression before we continue.
If I was actually going to do my Keir Starmer impression, I'd throw myself out the window because I think that the left in general, they don't realise what they're doing.
Nope.
The more they drag us back to Europe, kicking and screaming, and the more they call everyone far right and racist and fascist and all the things they bandy around, they've not learned the lessons of the Democrats in America. It doesn't work, Jez.
No. And I said the other day, I think we are at the beginning of where they were, America, 5 years ago, because the rest of Europe, Canada's got rid of that dreadful, wet, liberal Trudeau. Everybody's gone to the right. America is experiencing Trump. The ADF, they're all moving to the right. And what have we got? Him, that dreary sod.
But the reason we've got him, though, is because our Conservative Party, half of them are Lib Dems in blue ties.
Yeah, I agree.
They're weak and socialist, centrist, and more importantly, Jez, they didn't do the things that the majority of Britons wanted them to do.
And they didn't do what the majority of Britons were told they would do if we voted for them.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them explicit instructions, the Conservative Party, to stop illegal immigration completely and cut illegal immigration down to tens of thousands. And they said they would, and they worked for us, and they didn't do it. So how can we? I would urge everyone out there in Radioland to vote for the Reform Party. I might even run for them. I'm going to be an activist. Because the Con Lab Uni Party, Jez, can't be trusted anymore. I don't know whose fingers or hands are up their backsides. I don't know whose puppets they are, but you cannot trust them to do what they work for us, Jez.
I agree.
And if the majority say we want illegal immigration stopped and we want legal migration cut down to extremely low numbers, this is not a new problem, man. This is like 30 years old.
I'm completely with you.
It's one of the number one topics on the doorstep in the last 7 general elections, right? People I know, everyone's been saying it till they're blue in the face. We can see the degradation and the decline that third world immigration is bringing to Britain. We can see it happening in front of our eyes every day. Things are getting worse. I'm only going to vote Reform from now, and I urge everyone to. Let's start afresh. Let's get real change in Britain. Let's vote for the Reform Party.
Danny Boy, great to have you on. Let's go to Clacton-on-Sea. Nigel Farage's home seat constituency, Gay. Hello, how are you?
Hello, Jay.
Rachel
it's your
Reid.
good friend here.
How are
good friend here?
How are you? How are you, Sakir? All right.
I'm lovely, thank you. I've had a little paddle in the channel on my way to return, but I've had a wonderful sideline idea. I've decided I'm going to open a takeaway kebab van called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to be offering free everything to all illegals and a full spit roast to all good British citizens.
Right, well, there you go. I don't think you quite know what you said there, but that's my favourite call of the day. I think she might have meant Sunday roast, but there we go. We'll just leave that there. Now, don't even worry, Orion. It's fine. The words roast and something else do go together. Even I'm a bit hot. 0344 499 1000. If you could have seen the reaction to that phrase in the studio, the only person who looked calm, the only person who didn't even break a smile, the only person who just shrugged it off. Jodie's on 0344 499 1000. We're coming back in 3.
about these revelations. Tell us what you've learnt about Keir Starmer.
No, it's not for me to say whether this is for better or for worse. But he's not a natural politician.
No.
In fact, he overtly loathes politics. He said so. And we reported that in the aftermath of his suspension of Jeremy Corbyn, which, post facto, he now describes as this great moment of clarity and incision on his behalf.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
10 to 6, push that button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Transfer deadline day. Sam Ellard, who's the warm-up man for the proper star, Jim White, on Talk Sport later. It's all happening. Has just come in. I need more time. What's the matter with you then?
No, do you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm feeling really, really hyper today. It's transfer deadline day.
Yeah.
Hosting a show on YouTube, Talk Sports YouTube, on CTV, 7 till 10, the warm-up act for the legend, the GOAT Jim White. Cannot wait for it. So much is happening. So much is going on. I've got a new little number on. I've got a little, sweater with a T-shirt underneath. Someone said to me the other day, I need a new wardrobe. Do I need a new wardrobe? Or am I going
you need
okay?
to stay at home in it. Right, Premier League weekend review. I was at St James's Park. Tsunami! Losing to Kevin O'Sullivan's Fulham. By the way, that winning goal from Fulham, everybody thought was a massive mistake by Martin DeBranco. That's an unbelievable touch. Unbelievable touch to score that goal.
That's not a mistake, brother. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
It wasn't a mistake. It was a great touch by the thing.
But yeah, takes over him, doesn't it?
West Ham, Newcastle. Not the locals weren't happy, but it's all about Wednesday for them. Second
huge game, Jeremy. Wednesday night.
We've got a problem with your mic, so we're just gonna we'll just come running in. It doesn't matter. It's okay. You've put it on your stupid top and you've ruined your slot. Here comes Jodie. If you just don't worry, just walk across. No, she's gone down. Hold on a second. Yeah, right, OK. Can we not turn the camera around and see what's going on here? You can't talk, but basically, I have to say this. Oh, he's now taking his shirt off. She's putting her hand up. Oh, hello, matron. It's all going on. All right, Jode, she's just clipping it on the end. He's just smiling. He's gone red. She's gone out on all fours. It's all gone. Just stand up. Say hello, Jode.
Sorry.
Say hello.
I don't know what I did. Was that my fault?
I have no idea. I would have thought. Anyway,
sorry. Should we do
Newcastle lost.
Yeah.
Arsenal, just very quickly, so Newcastle, all about Wednesday. The second leg of the Carabao Cup, they've got a 2-0 lead.
Yeah.
Great fear up there that they're going to be turned
massive.
over.
I mean, we know it's been, 50, 60 years since Newcastle last won a trophy, so you're right, Wednesday night is massive. Feels like yesterday, the real big story of the Premier League was the Emirates Stadium yesterday. Incredible game of football. Arsenal 5, Man City 1. Man City equalised in the second half to make it 1-1.
End of an era.
I'm 100%.
End of a team. End of a team.
I think we've known that now for a few weeks. What's quite interesting is Man City, 3 players already coming in January. Looks like they're going to spend big money on a defensive midfield player called Nico Gonzalez today. So look, I kind of almost thought, get to the end of the season, then do the rebuild again.
I think that's why he signed a 2-year deal. I think he knows, and I think he was perfectly aware.
Some people think though, Jez. I mean, some people are almost going he's going to walk at the end of the season.
I'd have walked knowing it was all going to.
But I don't think for a single second Pep's going to want to walk away and leave Man City not at the very top. So I think it's always more likely, if this kind of makes sense, the worse they are this season, the more hungry he's going to be the man to almost now go Pep 2.0, rebuild and go again next season. He'll want to go out on very top.
I agree. On very top. That wasn't great English.
At the very top.
Spurs,
Yeah, sorry.
just saying. Spurs returning to winning ways against Brentford. That was a dull game, but I'm gonna big up. And I said it to you as a West Ham fan. I'm even more sick now of those stupid West Ham fans who spent years going, David Moyes, expansionist football. 3 on the bounce.
Yeah, incredible.
Everton 4, Leicester City 0.
And they're scoring goals.
3rd win on the run. Scoring goals. Don't need Dominic Calvert-Lewin. By the way,
Better
he's
scored
history.
Twice.
He has done a fantastic job, and it doesn't say an awful lot about Sean Dyche. I'm being completely honest.
That's fair. I mean, 3 wins in a row. It's remarkable. They're 9 points clear of the relegation zone now. You'd almost say with 15 games to go, that's them safe there. They're fine. They're going to be.
And we let him go. We let him go.
Yeah, you did let him go. But one thing I always say with West Ham, though, you're playing tonight, by the way, aren't you? Chelsea. I genuinely think Lopetegui, we obviously discussed and touched on it, not the right appointment. No. I really do rate Graham Potter highly as a coach, and I think Graham Potter will do a good job at West Ham. But David Moyes, there was something special, and it just felt right. Moyes going back to Goodison Park after leaving a decade ago to keep them up, lead them into their new stadium. Massive win for them over the weekend. You mentioned they're beating Leicester. Spurs, it was scrappy yesterday, but you know what? It was a very un-Tottenham-like performance, but that's good to see, Jeremy, because sometimes there's nothing wrong with digging in, sitting deep and grinding out a win.
Do you know what? If I get depressed being a West Ham fan, I think of all the Tottenham fans I know, because I couldn't sit dreadful. Let's crack on with transfer
Right, where do you want to start? There's a lot is going on, Jeremy.
Marcus Rashford, Aston Villa from Manchester United on loan. Do you want my take?
Yeah.
It's his last chance, and I think he will you laugh at me. I think he'll score 10 goals. I think he'll fly. I think that Unai Emery is a great coach who will do a great job for him. I think he knows. I think he'll put his arm around him and a boot up his backside. And I think Rashford will absolutely prove in the next 16 games that he is a quality striker. I think he had to get out of there for both sides. I really do.
Yeah, 100%, Jez. I think he should have left a long, long time ago. It went sour. He wasn't happy. The club weren't happy. It's a fascinating transfer because on paper he's had a really bad 18 months to 2 years where he's been well below the standards expected. And Aston Villa, a team playing in the Champions League, he's almost kind of failed upwards, hasn't he?
Yep.
But Unai Emery apparently was like, go and get Marcus Rashford. I want him. Yeah. And Emery, I think, is a coach that gets the best out of players, improves players. Well, I don't disagree with you. I want to see Marcus Rashford smiling and playing well. I don't want us to be talking about training, about his attitude, about nights out. Go and play football, smile on his face, because of what we do know, when he is at his best, there's a good player in there. So I'm happy for that. Tottenham have agreed a deal to sign the France under-21s forward, Matthias Tell from Bayern Munich. Well, he's on a jet arriving in London.
He's changed his mind.
Yeah. There was lots of different rumours about him maybe going to Man United. Latest we understand it, he's going to Tottenham. Very, very creative player. Spurs, weird. Palace have rejected a bid from Tottenham for defender Mark Gahey, thought to be about £70 million. Now, call me cynical. That's one of those Daniel Levy bids where he knows he's not going to be accepted, but he'll go, hey, I tried to sign a centre-back, didn't I? Just a couple of other...
Evan Ferguson to West Ham. Brighton.
Yeah.
Evan Ferguson was one of all the big clubs being injured, can't get a look in. And by the way, that Brighton coach looked out of his depth at the weekend when they lost 7-0. That was quite worrying. But Evan Ferguson loves Graham Potter. That could be a good signing for West Ham. And James Ward-Prowse has gone back. He was out on loan at Nottingham Forest. What a result for them, by the way. 7-0.
7-0, incredible. I've kind of thought that they're going to fall off. And
Not at all, man.
That was the day where I was like, to bounce back from that Bournemouth win and to go and to smash them 7. Evan Ferguson, really interested to see how he gets on at West Ham. When he burst onto the scene at Brighton under Potter, people were looking at this guy being like, he was being linked to Chelsea for an £80 million signing, but he's had some injuries, lost the place at Brighton. But you're right, Potter knows him well. He's got all the attributes, Evan Ferguson, to be a good centre forward, and we know West Ham need a centre forward.
Anything else?
João Felix, Chelsea midfielder João Felix, close to completing a move to AC Milan. Excuse me?
He's a striker, João Felix, isn't he?
Creative attacking player. Well,
you said midfielder. He's not, is he?
Oh, well, he can play. No,
If you're going to host the show tonight, get your facts right. I can't see Jim White would go, Evan Ferguson centre back. You're going red because you know I'm right. Get your facts right.
Do you know what? I'm going to say you're wrong. João Felix can play in midfield, so he's a creative. No, he's not a striker. He's not a 9. No, you're wrong. He's not a 9. He's a creative midfield player. He's not a 9. He's not an out-and-out centre forward. Now you're going red.
I'm not going red.
Poor from you, Jeremy. Honestly,
poor from me.
And you know what? Up until this point, I think you've had a half decent show today.
OK, fair enough.
Why don't you come on and join us on the show from 7 tonight?
Because I'm going home to have a drink.
Why?
To go home, have a drink, make love to my wife, because I live there.
And make love... What?
Make love to my wife. What's wrong with that?
Are you sure?
Well, I might do. I don't know.
Jeremy.
What?
Can we break? That's inappropriate. I don't want to know that.
Is it inappropriate?
I don't want to know these sort of things. Jeremy.
Jodie's going home to make love to her boyfriend. She's not married. Can you crack on, please?
I thought when you get married and get to your age, it all stops, doesn't it?
Wow. Can we get on with transfer debt? I'm sweating now a bit, to be honest.
There we go. Oh, no, that's it. So I think the main ones are...
Any other rumours?
I think lots of people looking at Manchester United. Ruben Amorim made it perfectly clear yesterday. He wanted to sign a centre-forward. But you know what the problem is at the moment? There's a lack of top-class centre-forwards that are out there, that are out and about.
And I don't don't think you want to go to Manchester United. At the weekend, by the way...
They were so bad yesterday.
No, but he put Xerxes and he put Højlund on the... And he played Mainu. What does that say to you? £200 million together, those two. What does it say?
So he thinks they're rubbish, and he's sending a message to upstairs. He wants to go and get centre forward. You said to me you think Ollie Watkins could go to Arsenal.
I do. I genuinely do. I think Marco Asensio will cut. I think they've got. We can get 150 million. I'm going to make Marcus Rashford, and I'm going to. I could be wrong. Whatever it is tonight on TalkSport, big it up because it's going to be fantastic. The only way. Forget all the rest of it. Listen to this man. What is it? What's it on?
We're going to be on YouTube and on your connected TV. 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock. Transfer show, and then from 10 o'clock, you mentioned him earlier, but the main man, the GOAT, Jim White, now it's Cricket Transfer Guru, take you through till 1 o'clock.
Whatever I do when I'm at home, I'm going to watch you.
You weirdo.
03 44 419 1000 is our telephone number. Thank you so much indeed to Sam. Transfer deadline day. The only place to watch it is TalkSport. News at 6 next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, our 3 drive for Monday afternoon. We're live across the UK. This is Talk. This is JK. Until 7 o'clock, I'm going straight to my next guest because I want to instill humour. Isabel Oakeshott, very good evening, Talk's international editor. How are you?
How are you, Jeremy? Are you well?
I'm very well, and I'd like to say how excited I am to have you here. If you're just tuning in, Isabel and I have not turned into Thunderbirds. This is the big news. Forget all this Brexit reset rubbish. Sir Keir Starmer has today been accused of breaking lockdown rules. He's so boring. On Christmas Eve, when we couldn't see anybody, he had a voice coach round to his house. Didn't spend it with his wife or kids in a mask. Quite how that works, Isabel. I can't see your lips moving. Anyway, he did that and still sounds crap. I woke up this morning, tuned into Mike Graham's amazing Morning Glory breakfast show, and this is the clip that launched the whole day on Talk. Have a listen, Isabel. Watch this, guys.
Let's get another voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. It's James from Blackburn.
a voice coach. That's a real low point. I mean, a voice coach. Dear Christ. Can you imagine what he spoke like before? I wonder if the voice coach went to him, "Okay, Keir, a new voice in 5, 4, 3. He's brilliant, isn't he? Oh, it's only Monday and I'm already delirious. What a weapon he is.
You can't make this stuff up, can you? I mean, of all the people that you would have a secret meeting with during COVID, it wouldn't be a doctor. No. It wouldn't be anybody from some kind of, foreign organisation from around the world who you had to see. It would be a voice coach. Yeah, that's a really, really important thing. And on Christmas Eve, I mean, does this man not have any kind of, love at all? I thought he'd like to spend time with his family. On Christmas Eve, I will spend time with the voice coach who will teach me how to speak properly. OK, Keir, I'll see you later on at home then. I've got somebody coming round in a mask. Also, imagine wearing a mask and teaching somebody how to speak. There's something wrong with him, isn't there? What is it? What's wrong with him?
Isabel, that was brilliant, right? So I thought, I'm not doing all this Brexit reset rubbish. I don't know where you are. Can I see Isabel? So I thought, I'm going to put it out. And I got the best call. Are you ready for this? And then we'll chat. This was earlier on Drive. This is David about Sir Keir Starmer. Go.
Keir, I'd like you to do some warming up exercises. Ease the vocal cords. Can you recite some pledges from your manifesto? By Jove, you've got it. You sound like a complete...
Do you know what? It's just money for old rope, isn't it, Isabel? I mean, it's ludicrous. What a hypocrite, by the way.
I love Mike Graham saying, what's wrong with a man? I mean, the answer to that is literally everything is wrong with a man. And it's really fatal for politicians when they start becoming a total national laughingstock. Kind of like, do you remember the John Major, tucking your vest into your pants thing, which no one ever forgot? Well, this is kind of happening to Keir all the time now. And it's just, there is nothing worse in a way for a politician than becoming a source of national ridicule. This is just brilliant, isn't it? Do you know, I'm actually with Ben Habib on this. He kind of came out with it, didn't he? The rest of us were thinking it, and Ben Habib just comes out and says it right out there. He doesn't think that actually what was going on Christmas Eve was any form of voice coaching. I just don't find that credible. Whatever was going on there, I don't think he was really having a voice coaching lesson. I think this was probably a social thing, which he obviously can't admit to.
But I remember being really, really angry because I was doing my best for Boris at that point, being really angry where the meeting up north in Durham with Angela and the local candidate, when they had beer and curry and there were 30 of them photographed in the same room, was apparently very different to 12 Tories in a room with a Diet Coke and a piece of cake. I'm not condoning any of it, by the way, but there seemed to be a systematic desire to get Boris Johnson. This man has been outed as yet another hypocrite, but this is really interesting, by the way. I don't know if you've seen this. Now, got to explain this. We've got a clip at the moment where earlier he's in Brussels, of course he is. Keir Starmer was asked about his voice coach at the end of the press conference. He seemed to get quite annoyed. And if you're listening on the radio, right, he was asked at the press conference if he broke the rules. He walked off and then came back to the microphone and said, of course not. Just have a listen and have a watch. This is earlier in Brussels.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you.
Of course not.
Was your voice coach definitely a key word?
He said all the rules were followed. He walked off the stage. Whether it was a voice coach or not, Isabel, another damning verdict of a very pious man who stood there and was incredibly judgmental about Johnson and the politicians. And in the Conservative Party, and I'm not sticking up for the Conservatives, but I remember Boris asking a question in the House of Commons saying, you're having a go at me about number 10, maybe rightly or not. You say I was in charge, but you were in charge as Director of Public Prosecutions and let Jimmy Savile get away with it. It's becoming a daily occurrence. And you're right, he's becoming a laughingstock.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, how long can he go on like this? I heard someone else on your show, I think it was your show earlier today. I've been listening to Talk all day because it's just so damn good.
Good girl.
So I can't remember whose show it was, but there was someone on, and maybe it was Gabriel Pogren talking about, I think it was actually the Sunday Times journalist talking about his book in which all of this comes out. And he was suggesting that Keir Starmer could go on, not just serving this term as Prime Minister, but serving another term. And I just think that's completely incredible. I don't think the guy's going to, in any shape or form, last the distance till the next election.
I know, but I think actually, to be fair, Ben did bring that up as well, and I can put that to you, is that because you'd look at it and you'd go, you must know that so much of what you're doing is so unpopular, whether it's resetting relations with the EU, whether it's hacking off Donald Trump, whether it's backing the banning of cats, whatever it is, right? The real people, the British tax-paying, I haven't broken the law and I just want to get on with my life people are laughing at you. And what Ben said was, the problem is, maybe they're this up their own backsides, that they think that the Tories and Reform, neither of them can win an absolute majority at the next election because they will take lumps out of each other. Not that he's saying that they should merge, but that will happen next time, and Labour could sneak back in via the back door. I don't agree with that, but that's quite an interesting analogy, to be fair.
I think that's with respect to, I think it was Benedict Spence that said it, actually.
Oh, right.
But with respect to him, I think that's a rather ill-informed analogy because that is based on a very misconceived assumption that Reform is primarily drawing its support from former Tory voters. That's not true at all. You only have to look up north, where Reform did so well, coming second in an absolute swathe of seats. You should have seen the number of people turning out for Reform rally over the weekend, and there's so much more.
It was in Sunderland. Were you there?
I was not at the rally, but I tell you what, I'm really tempted to go to this next one, which is being advertised as the biggest political rally in modern political history in Britain. I think that'll be incredible. But the point I'm making is that Reform's sights are firmly set, not just on taking former Tory votes. I don't think the party actually has to try at all hard to do that. Those are just hemorrhaging naturally. Reform is after the Labour vote, and Labour knows this. They really do.
Be really, really interesting. I should say I was in Newcastle at the weekend, and I mean this not just because he's your man, but honestly, so I'm in a box and they're all Reform, and I go, well, I'll try and ring him, and they went, what, Richard Tice? You've got his number. So I tried to FaceTime, no signal. They were like, come to our box, free ticket. There is an absolute groundswell. I don't care what anybody says. There is a groundswell in this country for change, and it'll be very, very interesting. Can we talk about Sir Keir Starmer and Labour's inability to read the room as well? This resetting, without getting too detailed, of the relationship with Europe that he wants. To me, he seems to not care about businesses because businesses will suffer. Then businesses have suffered since that appalling budget in October. Dead set on this, let's ingratiate yourself with Europe, let's be a globalist, let's deal with ideology. Does he forget that the majority of people in this country voted to leave, or doesn't he care? Again, I don't understand the theory, really.
17.4 million people did vote for that. And what Sir Keir Starmer will be thinking is, oh, Brexit's been a great failure. Well, that's because none of those in charge have actually made the most of it or even begun to make the most of it. And we've seen today the real potential for Brexit when we've seen Donald Trump actually saying, well, I might impose tariffs on the EU, but perhaps I'm going to let Britain off because he's no longer...
But wouldn't that be a prime moment then for our Prime Minister to look at the most powerful and successful country in the land that's having the shackles, ripped off it with a president who wants to make it great again and encourage trade and safety and all those things and deal with immigration? Wouldn't be this a moment where you'd go, let's align ourselves with them? But as Benedict Spence said, he can't, can he? Because his own party would tear lumps out of him.
And, every time that Keir Starmer is faced with a choice which could make him politically more popular, he makes the wrong decision. And the opposition parties, I'm not just talking about Reform here, can kind of scarcely believe their luck because this guy, at each and every turn, does the very thing that is guaranteed to increase support for the parties that he's up against. I find it truly astonishing. He must know that if he goes against Brexit, he's only going to alienate yet more voters. A lot of Brexit voters, again, were Labour voters in the north.
And that's my point. I have the total. I totally share this with you, Izzy. I don't understand whether he's. This is what nobody can explain to me. You have a shelf life yet. Yes, but to me, he's cutting his own throat, literally in 4 years' time, if not 4 months' time. I don't think pensioners ever forget the cut. I don't think farmers ever forget the tractor tax. I don't think people who voted for Brexit, 17.4 million, will forgive or forget. So is he a one-term wonder, or is he just so naive? Is he so dead set? I've no idea, but to me, almost everything they do. I mean, the other report out today that we haven't discussed on was that Britain will remain the working from home capital of Europe, even exacerbated by the workers' rights plans that Rayner's bringing in. Another example of how you are going to absolutely destroy small and medium-sized businesses because workers just don't have to come to work, and if they feel anxious, they can be off for a year being paid. It's ridiculous.
Oh dear. I don't know, but like there's a bit of me that's quite joyful that he's getting it so badly wrong, because in some ways, at least that's hopefully going to hasten the end of the misery. It's just a question of how much damage he's allowed to do in the meantime. And to answer your question, does he? I just don't think he gets it. I think this is something about being this kind of Islington lefty elite. They don't get it, and even if they think they understood what people are feeling, they think that their judgment is superior and they have to think on our behalves.
Maybe it's what his new chief of staff, of course, Morgan McSweeney. I don't know why I always want to go Morgan McSweeney from Treasure Island, but I do. So he wrote a book at the weekend, and that basically said he's not a leader, he's an HR. He's an HR manager. He's basically a boring human resource. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why he got the gig. There's a feature on this show that you don't even know about that rates brilliantly when you take callers with me. Can we go to the phones?
Let's do that. Can we talk about cats at some point too?
Oh, they're eating the cats and the dogs. No, they're not. Let's go to East Yorkshire. Patrick, you're on Talk Drive. Myself and Isabel Oakeshott. What you got?
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. You just woke me up. Keir Starmer. Isabel, you're a star. Keir Starmer, he hasn't got a damn mandate to go and upset and rechange Brexit. 17 million people voted on that. He didn't have a mandate to take away the winter fuel allowance. He hasn't got it to take away the farmers. He's now going to take away pensions from army personnel when they die. He's just got nothing. At least with Trump, when he was campaigning, he knew what he was going to do. People knew what he was going to do.
Patrick, I agree with you, and actually, Isabel, it's a really interesting point. It's been made before. There's been calls, has there not, for political parties to actually post and publish their, whether it's contracts like reform with the people or whether it's manifestos, because what the Labour Party did very cleverly was there was nothing in their manifesto, but they didn't need to put anything because the Tories had stopped being listened to by the British public. And he's right, Patrick from East Yorkshire, because now they can do anything, can't they?
Yeah, and he didn't even mention practically the biggest, well, probably for me, the single biggest one, which is immigration. He doesn't have a mandate to keep on allowing more people in. And yet, have you noticed in the last couple of days, the only thing this government has said about immigration is how they want more of it. They want a special EU scheme for young people. They want to bring in more high-skilled people. We don't need any more visa schemes, none at all. We need net zero of any of this. We already have too many.
Completely. Let's go to Manchester. It's a new caller. Nathan, you're on Talk Drive with me and Isabel Oakeshott. What you got?
Hi, it's Mason. Sorry, it's just that it's hard for me to pronounce my own name because I'm deaf. So the question is that if the Reform Party managed to somehow, by a miracle, get into office as Prime Minister, do you think Nigel Farage will be a better person suitable for the job? For example, would he give more tariffs on the tax of imports, or...
Do you think that... It's a really good question, Isabel. And Nathan, first-time caller, thank you, mate, for coming on. He said, do you think... I'll tell you why Nathan's based his question, shall I? It's obvious to me. Because he's grown up in a country like I have, where increasingly we have politicians who either say nothing about what they're going to do, or they say what they're going to do and they don't bloody well do it. And we look across the pond right now, love him or loathe him, Donald Trump hadn't even made it to the White House. He was at the airport. After the inauguration, he was signing orders. That's what we need. Is Nigel Farage and Richard and that lot, are they conviction enough to do from day one with reform what they say they want to do?
I tell you what, that is exactly what is being planned. And if reform is lucky enough and actually earns the trust of people to get their vote and forms the next government, you will not believe what will happen in the first few days. You know, they will absolutely go for it, Trump style. And, you know, I'm sure all the, you know, the wet lettuce lefties will say, oh, you know, this is what Liz Truss tried. Well, we know why Liz Truss and her strategy didn't work, and it will be a lot better planned out than that. And they will absolutely emulate Trump, I think, in announcing a blizzard of things. A bunch of things are just going to be banned pretty much straight away.
Can't wait. 20 past 6, 0344 499 1000. Isabel Oakeshott. There are two more stories today, and I know you want to talk about them. During the presidential election, there was uproar when Donald Trump said the migrants are eating the cats and the dogs in Springfield, Ohio. What he did was he highlighted a problem, whether it's true or not. Today we hear that the SNP, yes, that government in Scotland, when you bear in mind what's going on in the world, you bear in mind what's happening in the Middle East and in Ukraine with Russia, you think about people starving and homeless people and veterans, they've decided to consider banning pet cats in a bid to protect birds and other wildlife. Look at Isabel. I wish you could see her face. Isabel Oakeshott, thoughts?
I can't believe this. So the other thing they said is that maybe if your cat isn't banned, you can still have your cat, but you've got to take your cat out on a lead. I mean, my cat would just be so useless on a lead. I mean, she would just sit down. She would go absolutely nowhere. There'd be a feline protest going on. Do you know what this reminds me of? I think it was like, I don't know exactly what year it was, but under Chairman Mao, the Chinese regime tried to improve their crops by trying to kill all the birds because they thought the birds were eating the seeds from the crops. And they got everyone to come out with their pots and pans and, you know, frighten off the birds and shoot starlings. I mean, this is like that. It is that insane. Come on, guys, leave our cats alone.
And also somebody quite rightly said, I've never heard a cat rip a kid's head off. Dangerous dogs do it the whole time. Let's deal with them. The other one that Ryan will go, we're in a hurry, don't care. But bless him, he's just trying to keep time. Network Rail has today, Isabel, told staff to stop using the word passengers. The company that maintains Britain's railways, obviously they do a crap job, has issued new guidance to employees asking them to use less formal language in a bid to reduce customer frustration at train delays and cancellations. Words including purchase, obtain and rest assured have all been axed from the company's official lexicon. Instead of passenger, staff are being told they must use the word you. It's a neutral term, oh God, and avoids the assumption of gender. Isabel Oakeshott.
I want to ban Network Rail people from saying some other things. Can they please stop apologising and just make the damn trains go on time? I also do not want to be told thank you for your patience. I'm not patient. I want the trains to work. So stop thanking me for something I'm not and just crack on with your jobs.
Love you so much. You can listen to a voice note, Isabel Oakeshott. This is Tony on Keir Starmer's voice coach. Go.
Hi, Jeremy. First of all, I want to say I'm sick of the people going on about me. I'm not a socialist. I love this country more than any pig, and that's saying something. I want to push this country closer to Europe. I don't care about what anybody else voted Brexit. I'm right and I'm correct. So let's get this country going green. Okay, it's going to bankrupt us, but it doesn't matter because we all know that I'm right, and me and all the rest of us. So remember, vote Labour.
Unbelievable. Do you know what? It's been amazing today because people are just... You made a point at the beginning and we'll just bring it back now at the end. I think you're so right. When they start laughing at you and the papers start putting pictures of you dressed as a lettuce or a turnip or whatever it is, it's the end. It has to be.
It is the end. I'm afraid it's going to be a very, very, very long, drawn-out end. But he's finished. He can't come back. He really can't.
What I wanted was, and you managed to do it. You're going to finish as you started. Somebody said, "Do you think we can get a woman on that can do an impression of Sir Keir Starmer?" And they'll end up. Do you know who Richard III is, by the way? You know Rachel Reeves. I've now named her Richard.
Our Rachel Reeves.
Isabel Oakeshott, we love you. Thanks for coming on, Isabel Oakeshott. 6:23. We're live across the UK. You want to be part of this between now and 7 ahead of the Fulham supporting Kevin O'Sullivan, who will go on and on. I went all the way to Newcastle and Fulham won. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Drive.
He's just not up to it. It's very clear to me that he cannot survive as Prime Minister until the next election. Clearly, the next election is a very, very long time away. But it's inconceivable to me that this guy is going to continue leading his party and into any kind of major electoral test. It's everyone around him must be able to see that this isn't working.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 27 minutes past 6. Talk on Drive. No, Drive on Talk. I don't know what's going on. 0344 499 1000. Windswept and interesting. Jez, next time I watch the Thunderbirds intro, I'm going to hear Starmer with his 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That has ruined everything to do with my boyhood time, says Kevin Southampton. Who paid for the voice coach? If it was private and it was a personal booking, shouldn't the taxpayer get the money back? Hello to Adrian in Woking. If they're banning the cats in Scotland to protect wildlife, are they going to ban the windmills, which also kill loads of birds? A very salient point, dear Adrian in Woking. Hello to Nicola from Bromsgrove. Mate's the posh part. No, I'm joking. Jez, That voice coach was about as much use as a glass hammer in his dad's toolbox. Very interesting. Jez, your impression of Liam Starmer, or Lion Starmer, after Benedict Spence sounded more like Boise from Only Fools and Horses. Could be true. Chloe's in Devices. I can't do it. I knew a woman from Devices who... Never mind. I'm completely creasing at JK's impressions of Starmer the Farmer Harmer. Thanks for the laugh, Jez. Jane's in Worcester. Hello, Jane. Great show. If the SNP are considering banning cats, have they thought about how overrun the country will become with mice and rats? I couldn't agree more. Scotland full of rats. Stop putting Starmer down. He's a top bloke. Love it when he says morning. No, that's anonymous. Probably sent it himself, miserable git. Last one today, Jez, says Sidemark. Could you change the name of your sports segment with Sam Ellard to football? There has been a massive weekend of rugby and tumbleweed from the sports section. I agree. How disgusting, Ryan, that you didn't put in about the rugby. Shame on you, Ryan Thrussell, producer of this show. Now, our next guest, and nobody's allowed on unless they play the game today. One of them, very few bunch of people, a remaining Tory MP. Matt Vickers MP, Conservative in Stockton West, and the Shadow Crime Policing and Fire Minister. A very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Jeremy. How's it going?
Now, I've told you before, I know you're a politician, I know you're a shadow cabinet minister and all that sort of stuff, shadow minister, but I'm helping you just understand that people love you. If you need to come on this show today by doing an impression of the man who needs a voice coach. We've had several, because it's the bloody story of the day, Matty. Go on, have a go.
I'm a bit snotty at the moment. I don't know that I've really got it in. I tell you what, I've had a plan going for a little while.
Go on.
That's, if I can perfect it, I'll have a listen to what's gone on today. I'm going to try to perfect it, and I'll do and I'll ask a PMQ in the voice of Starmer.
Have you heard? Have you got that David one? Are you doing it now? You doing it now?
I can't do it. I'm terrible.
Listen to this.
I'll work on it. When I come on next time, I'll have it perfect.
Listen to this, though. This is the best voice note of the day. This is David. Go.
Keir, I'd like you to do some warming up exercises. Ease the vocal cords. Can you recite some pledges from your manifesto? By Jove, you've got it. You sound like a complete...
I mean, that's it. I mean, you can sit and you can talk about resetting Brexit and crime and all that, but the truth of the matter is...
crime, though. This is a crime.
It is.
Whoever the hell he was paying to deliver him voice coaching needs charging. We should get the police on this. It's a priority. He's been ripped off.
I was very, very, very supportive of Boris Johnson when lots of people wanted to put him down. That's fine. It ended. But he was systematically taken from office and a majority by having a piece of cake and apparently allowing this sort of stuff to go on. I remember Boris standing up in the House of Commons saying, well, hold on a minute, you're talking about being in charge of buildings. You were in charge as the Director of Public Prosecutions and missed Jimmy Savile. This hypocrite who made a career out of telling everybody, OK, is no better than anybody he has slagged off. This is disgusting. And again, Matt, people will not forget this, will they?
Well, the thing is, it's not strike number one, it's strike number two. I still, in my own mind, cannot understand how Keir Starmer went to some gathering in northwest Durham, eating pizza and beers, not with people who he worked in the office with, people who'd been amassed from across the country.
Yeah.
It is insane that he got away with that. I still cannot understand, as somebody who I like to think is semi-informed, how he got away with that and how that was acceptable. Never mind this as stage two.
Now that we want to talk about a march in London today, but I want to talk about none of us seem to be able to understand. I know we can joke and say there isn't a theory, it's just ideology. This man seems to deliberately every day want to hack off people who will never give him the time of day. Again, we've talked about pensioners, we've talked about farmers. He obviously patently wants to reset relations with Brussels. But what's interesting is that businesses will really, really suffer. Now, we had the budget where small and medium-sized businesses, not to be encouraged to grow and create growth, were hammered. They're going to be hammered again because of this ideology, despite the fact, Matt, that 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU. Political suicide, surely.
It is nuts. The biggest people we're missing out with there is the high street shops and the landlords, because that hasn't quite fed into the media narrative yet. They are being hit by national insurance increases, but the small businesses, the ones that add the colour to your high street and your local pub, They're about to be whacked with a massive bill for business rates because they have slashed business rates relief for leisure, hospitality and retail to its thousands of pounds on the bill, as well as the thousands of pounds on national insurance. It's insane, and they are the next big victim. And in the next few months, we're going to see them all going down the pan. We started to see a couple of them, but we're going to see the rest. Even the big retailers are going down the pan. But in terms of Brexit, are we really surprised? This is a man who ran to be the leader of the Labour Party, pledging to bring back free movement. A couple of months ago when we had election, it was all about smashing the gangs. But the guy was promising, in order to get elected as the leader of his own party, he sold them the idea he was going to reinstate freedom of movement. We shouldn't be surprised. This is exactly what we should have expected.
Do you genuinely think in the next 4 years, bearing in mind the size of his majority, how close do you think that this scary socialist government can get us back close to Europe? Genuinely, how close?
I think you're going to see a lot of things that will, whether we're back in infinite, whatever they call it, they start referring to things as different names like irregular migration. They'll rebrand it.
You sounded like Starmer then. Well done, Matty. That was good.
Irregular migration. Whatever it might be, whatever the brand it has, and whatever it seems like as a headline, underneath the bonnet, there'll be wiring goes on that's very difficult to remove. You're about to see a bill on immigration on Monday. Well, you've seen the headlines on it. They're removing the ability that the UK has to age define people, to test people for their age when they arrive here illegally. You're seeing them remove all sorts of things that we put, even the right to deport people, the pressure on the Home Secretary to remove people who arrive here illegally. The law says that if you arrive here illegally, you can't claim asylum. All of this is actually being ripped out. So whoever arrives next, should we get back into office in 4 or 5 years' time, then this will be even harder to bring back.
Why I voted personally, I've always been honest with people doing this show, why I voted to leave was I sort of think this country should make its own laws and police its own lands and fish its own waters and have its navy in charge of its borders. And I don't like the fact. And, I was a Thatcher fan. Quite when she built that Channel Tunnel is beyond me. I'm being completely serious. I don't understand why we gave away so much. Something else that you've been heavily involved in, shadow crime policing and fire minister under Kemi. Tradespeople. Tell me about this tradespeople march today in central London. They brought a tank with them. What was that all about, mate?
At some point, I want to come back to trade and international trade. But either way, yeah, today in central London, and do you know what? Not enough people have noticed this. Hundreds and hundreds of tradesmen came to town with one mission. So I am the son and brother of a builder. My dad's a builder. My brother's a builder. And when you see a tradesman's van get broken into and their tools get nicked, you kind of think, that's a big crap. Actually, that's huge consequences. They lose the equipment, the materials that were stolen. Their van gets damaged and put out of action. They disappoint a customer. They lose a day or weeks of work because they haven't got the kit they need. They can't get the van to work. All of these, it's actually huge, huge problem. And those people are the backbone of Britain. This economy is built on literally built on the work of small business people. And they are getting absolutely smashed by this thing. It's growing at a rate, particularly in London. It's growing across the country, but in London, the vast majority of it, well, a good half of the entire thing happens in London. Under Sadiq Khan, it's up 50%. These people go out there when you've left your van and you're outside your house, they break it and then they go and sell it at a car boot sale. Like it's ridiculous in broad daylight. Equipment that you've paid hundreds or thousands of pounds. And the worst part of this is there is a bill on the shelf that had been put through about protecting people's stuff that was getting nicked like this, that was going to mean the people who produce those tools, that heavy machinery, the people who produce stuff that can have an immobiliser on it, have to put identification on it. They have to put equipment that allows you to identify it, regardless of what these bad guys might do, that requires them to build it with an immobiliser that puts them off nicking. It basically make this stuff hard to nick. It's in there. It's gone through. It's on a shelf. He can pick the pen up now and he can sign it off. And these people will have the protection that they deserve, and he hasn't, and it's 6 months in, it's a disgrace.
And actually, the irony, and I'm glad we could talk about it because it is a disgrace, this is against tool theft. And he's the son of a tool maker.
Well, he's the son of a tool maker, I'm the son of a builder. But it's so regular, it's now happening once every 12 minutes.
I saw a video the other day of this poor guy absolutely rinsed everything he'd worked for, all of his tools, and then couldn't work. So we're happy and glad to support that. 23 minutes to 7, by the way. Matt, don't go anywhere. I want to put this to you as a spokesman for the Tories. You've always been honest. You come on. There's much going on. Big rallies for reform. People are saying that Labour could get in through the back door because the right will get lumps out of each other. I want to know what you think of the latest madness. Let's start with the SNP. They're going to consider banning cats so they can protect birds and other wildlife. I mean, there is a war in the Middle East and also in Ukraine, but no, we're going to ban cats. Thoughts on that, my friend?
Well, I've always been more of a dog man, to be honest. But in the realms, I mean, it's madness. Do you know what's more mad? Is that this thing is even, not only that it's considered, but the fact that there's some guy or lady who probably went to some very nice university and sat writing a paper like this to suggest such a thing should be done. And she probably got paid quite handsomely. The world has gone mad.
But that's my point. The reason I made it to you was, and you know, because I've always been straight, one of the reasons that we've ended up with this nightmare is the British people stopped listening to your party. Is it any wonder? And I'm saying this about all politicians. Most people have been messages today and going, that's what the SNP are doing with what's going on in the world. That's the madness, and that is what we have with Labour. It's hurty words, and it's quangos, and it's committees. It's nothing that's real and vital, and that's what people need to... People do get it. And the Network Rail today banned the word passenger because they need a more neutral term of you because it's gender-specific. What the hell does that mean?
The world has gone mad. But the biggest problem, actually, you hit the nail on the head, is that in 4 years' time, when all our pensioners have frozen to death, when we don't produce any of our own food and our countryside is completely covered in solar farms, when there's not a community pub left in this country, when every shop is boarded up on the high streets of Britain and nobody can find a damn job, there's still going to be a debate about whether this man carries on, because a few people might decide to vote reform and it might be just enough, as it was this time, to hand them...
But you can, Matt, with respect, you can't say it like that. Now, they led an opinion poll at the weekend. You were in third place. They had 26%. They're no longer reform is a very viable alternative to people. And from an ex-Tory, and I'm being straight with you as you've always been with me, the very worst thing that the Tories can do is cast reform as some sort of passing ship in the night, because they are a serious... I think there's 3 parties now, Matt.
Opinion polls are opinion polls, but if there is 3 parties at the next election, there's a good chance Keir Starmer will be prancing back into Downing Street. So we can't have 3 parties at the next election. But in real terms, these are opinion polls. Do you know what? I think lots of people like me who would have otherwise been peed off with the world might have gone, oh, well, actually today, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. The reality is we've got to go listen to what people have had to say to us, take the message, put the offering out there. You're going to see the offering, actually. You're going to see the offering as soon as maybe Monday or in the next few weeks when we see what's coming forward on the immigration bill that they're bringing forwards, where they're slashing away every protection we put in place for the British people. But that offering is going to become a bit more clear and people will be able to make an informed choice.
All right, mate. Listen, it's always good to have you on. Shadow, Crime, Policing and Fire Minister Matt Vickers on Talk Drive. Thank you, Matty. 20 to 7, 0344 499 1000. Kev O'Sullivan from 7 o'clock tonight. Fulham fan. Petri Hoskins from 10. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good listen from 10, Kev from 7, 17 minutes to that. 0344 419 1000. Loads of you trying to get on. First up, though, Andrew Allison, head of our campaigns at Popular Conservatism. Andrew, a very good evening. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm very well, Jeremy. How are you?
Well, I'm a bit hacked off with life, to be honest, but I'm going to put you some of the more light-hearted stuff because I'm sick and tired of talking about Brexit. Oh, by the way, you can only come on this show if you can do an impression of a man who needed a voice coach to sound as boring as he still does. Your Andrew Allison, your Sir Keir Starmer impression, please.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's extraordinary, mate, isn't it? The hypocrisy of everything that he said about everybody, and he had a voice coach in his house. My thing from earlier was, how do you teach somebody, by the way, if you're doing this? I can't see your lips. and somebody said earlier, this was the Director of Public Prosecutions. How did he get that far sounding so crap?
Because you probably can. Although people are blaming this voice coach, but I mean, come on, she's a voice coach, not a miracle worker, so, you know, don't blame her.
Let's talk about Scotland. They're banning the cats in Scotland. This is my favourite story of the day. Obviously, we remember during the election, as I was saying, in America, when Trump decided to throw a hand grenade in the middle of everything, when in Springfield, Ohio, they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats, the migrants. The SNP, in their infinite wisdom, in brackets, are you joking, close brackets, in the midst of everything that's going on, Andrew, Middle Eastern terrible things in Gaza, you've got the war in Ukraine, you've got people starving, all sorts of problems. They're going to ban pet cats to protect birds and other wildlife. Your thoughts, please, my friend?
Well, we have 2 cats now, well, I mean, what can you say? It is utterly ludicrous, of course it is. But it just nothing surprises me with the SNP. I mean, they just come up with all these weird and wonderful, wacky suggestions.
I thought they were about Scottish independence. What are they going to do? Bloody cats aren't going to change people's minds, are they?
Well, hardly. It is just incredible that they would even sort of consider anything as stupid as this. I mean, are they going to get the cat police out? I mean, I read in a report in one newspaper where they said that it was in certain housing areas where you basically have to sign an agreement that you wouldn't have a cat. So, I mean, are the police going to go around looking for stray cats?
I mean, you can imagine
try
it's
to
a
work
bit
out
like
who the cat belongs to or something like that.
You've got to be feline pretty bad if somebody knocks something. You know what I did there? I was crap, that wasn't it? But I mean, how do you judge? People like lie the whole time, but you're going to hide. I mean, it's ludicrous, man. And you're saying to people, we might send the cat police out in Scotland, and you can't get anybody to come out and see when you've been burgled or your shop's been ransacked.
No, you can't get the real police. No, you can't actually get the police out to do anything like that. But they'll probably send patrols around looking for cats.
You are a Popular Conservatism, and this is very interesting. The other main story of the day, we can do pro-Brexit, but I want to talk this. Network Rail has told its staff, Andrew, to stop using the word passengers. If you are just tuning in, this is not a wind-up. The company, Network Rail, that maintains British Railways, well, not to a very high standard, has issued new guidance saying, please use left formal language in a bid to reduce customer frustration. Right, so if your train's delayed or cancelled, words including purchase, obtain and rest assured are all axed from the company's official lexicon. Instead of passenger, Andrew Ellison, staff are advised to use the word you. It's a neutral term that does not assume gender.
We welcome you on the train.
I feel that was really... Oh, you, show us your ticket, you. That's not very nice, is it?
I tell you, I was very frustrated travelling by rail recently, Jeremy. It was during that storm just over a week ago. And my train was cancelled. I had to book another one, but I couldn't work out, whether my ticket was valid or not. So I had to book another ticket. Then I arrived late for another train that I booked, and then I was delayed for another hour. That was what annoyed me. Being called a passenger didn't bother me in the least. Being constantly delayed because of train cancellations did.
I mean, that's the point. We can laugh about, they're banning the cats in Scotland and Network Rail say you can't say passenger. But the fact of the matter is this country is being taken over, and I suspect it's this Labour government. It's sort of nanny control, state control. If you'd written this, I mean, you would just think to yourself, this is utterly, utterly ludicrous. There's so much going on in the world, and you expect us to respect our politicians when they're spending their time dealing with this rubbish.
I know. And I mean, the other stuff there, it's pregnant people, isn't it, rather than women, pregnant women. And you can't say mother and father anymore because you have to say parent. You have
Last
to be
week we had the
gender
police
neutral.
banned from saying blacklist. I mean, I had a whole show of people saying, "What? So I can't go to a casino and play blackjack? I live in the black country in Wolverhampton. Yam yam. You can't say that." Why are we so obsessed? Or rather, why are the Labour
Well, we're not,
Party?
are we?
No.
We're not really obsessed. You know, the good old British public is not obsessed by this. The good old British public is annoyed about this sort of rubbish coming out. That is the truth. It's who? I mean, there's one council, I think it was North Devon Council, has come up with 100 and something page report on using gender neutral language. I mean, one assumes that they've actually commissioned that report. So they've used hard-pressed council taxpayers' money to actually commission a report and then into 100 and something pages that they expect their staff to read. Now, if all the staff actually do read it, now, of course, if I was working for North Devon Council, I wouldn't read the bloody thing. but assuming that all the council staff actually read this, how many wasted hours is that?
Yeah.
On total nonsense.
I was in an office, I won't tell you where, the other day, and a friend of mine she had to fill out a survey. Sent by, I guess, HR, asking about what you do with different scenarios. It's like A, B, C or D, right? And you just push whichever one, and once you get the right answer, yeah, then you move on. There were 50 of them. It took her an hour. She was listening to a podcast while doing it. Just put in A, if that was wrong, B, then C, then D. How does that help anybody? It's madness, isn't it? It is madness, isn't it?
No, it doesn't help. It doesn't help anyone. It's just a complete waste of time and money. But for some reason, and it is particularly in the public sector and also in larger corporations. I mean, the average guy or woman running their small, medium-sized business doesn't have time for any of this rubbish.
No, listen, and I so agree. And then you think about a government that's not only spending its time, you know, banning words and all that, who are screwing small businesses with business rates. Listen, Andrew, I'd love to have more time. We haven't, but we love having you on. Andrew Allison, head of campaigns at Popular Conservatism. Thank you very much indeed. 10 to 7.
A nice guy, bringing in your baskets and your bundles of proposals, to the table never really works. And actually, look at what Brexit has actually enabled us to do. And if it enables us to escape those Trump tariffs, then that's worth its weight in gold already. So don't throw it away. Would be my advice to Starmer. And don't, as you know, look at the front page of the Times. Look at these French already saying, "Oh, we're going to punish roast beef." No, come on. This is not how we do it. Not going down another 5 years of playing to their tune.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Drive time, 6 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's get some calls on. Graham, a new caller in Doncaster, 2 minutes only. You're on Talk Drive. What you got, G?
Hi, James. How you doing, mate? Listen, just this Paul Starmer, we should thank him for what he's doing, because he's just playing into reform hands. I'm 63-year-old, mate. I've been out putting leaflets around. I live in a little pit village just outside Doncaster. And the amount of people, old people, today when I've been posting leaflets just saying, reform all the way, reform all the way. The man's a clown. The man is is he a man?
I think he's an idealist. I think he's a socialist. I think that he got into power on a massive hatred of the Tories, and I accept that. I was one of those that didn't vote. I have been very vocal about my support for reform. My only problem, Graham, it's not a problem, is if it continues in this way, the Labour Party could sneak in the back door in 4 years' time if the Tories and reform both get the same. What we want to see is reform move ahead, and I think that can be achieved with good policies. I personally, and I'd say this to Richard and I'd say it to Nigel, I don't think reform should take every single failed Tory MP. I think they should find fresh people, if you want me to be honest. But I like what they say, like you, and you've got to get out there and spread the word, haven't you?
We've got to, mate. We have to, because I just feel it. I fear for old people. I really fear for them. You know, and he's not stopped. He won't stop. He doesn't want them. You're past retirement age. He doesn't want you no more. He wants rid of you. We've got to make accommodation, remember, Jezza, for these.
Good man. Gee, thank you so much indeed, Doncaster. Let's find a call of the day. Let's go to Exeter, down south. David, you're on Talk Drive. What you got?
Well, I've got as big as it gets, really. Starmer cozying up to Macron and the EU with his defence pact that he's seeking that actually equates to going into European Defence Union.
Yeah, EDU, yeah.
Well, we've got the breaking of the silence today. I anticipate Nigel Farage and Reform will come in on this. But you've got James Cartledge, Shadow Defence, and then the former Secretary of Defence, Ben Wallace, now questioning, one, what's going on with the procurement with the European Defence Union, because that looks where Starmer's going to go. And I'm going to read you what Ben Wallace has just tweeted, which is very, very significant. How can Keir Starmer go and lecture Europe on defence when he refuses to commit to increasing UK defence spending? The so-called EU Defence Fund is not all as it seems, and the PM should not forget that NATO is the cornerstone of our defence, not the EU. Well, of course, I can answer this, Ben Wallace and all the Tories. The reason he's doing it is because Tony Blair said that the European Defence Union and having their own capabilities, i.e. their procurement of their own defence systems, is, I quote, absolutely essential.
Why?
Now you've got Jonathan
Why is it
Powell,
essential? Why is it essential?
Because, well, although Tony, when he discussed this, said we should maintain the relationship with America and NATO, well, they've not done that because they've depleted our defence and security considerably, both Labour and Tory, for decades. So That's not happened, and I suspect what Starmer is going to do is going to say, I've got this lovely thing coming down the pipe. We're going to go in with common European Union defence procurement because it's going to be cheaper. But what's actually going to happen is that impact will be both on UK defence industry, BAE, Babcock and Rolls-Royce, and we will pull away from the US, which is where our security back comes from. The NATO security back comes from the US. It doesn't come from the EU.
No, it doesn't.
Comes from the US.
And that is why I never have a problem when I hear Donald Trump saying, you know, I pay up to 5%, you lot need to get your hands out your pockets. I couldn't agree more. And listen, when I say scary times, people sometimes say to me, you overdoing it. No, I'm not. This country is at a very important moment in its future, and it'll be very interesting. Thank you so much indeed, David in Essex. Hello to Chris. Jez, what about the Queen sitting on her own at her husband's funeral and Starmer partying Christmas Eve? He should resign like Boris had to. Phil's in Basingstoke. I'm seriously worried that the Scottish cats will end up being illegally exported to Springfield, Ohio, and the migrants will... Yes, absolutely. Kevin O'Sullivan, how are you, dear boy?
I'm very, very well. I'm glad you had a good time in Newcastle watching a real football team going up northeast, right?
Fulham were good. Fulham were good. You got 1 minute, kiddo. They're eating the cat. No, they're not. They're
eating
they're